Well, let's not delay any longer. Let's get into it. This is like the 5th interview. I can't even believe I have so many people that are in to talk to me. Like 5 people. That has to be scraping the edge of my social network right there.
It's like we like talking to you or something like that. I don't know. It's weird.
It's weird. It's gonna give me a bigger ego than I already have. Everyone, this is Anna, also known as Circuits, aka or AAK, lowercase AA plus K. Circuits and Coffee, also on Twitch. Jump over to that channel, give a follow, give you time. I know everyone is doing it. Circuits and Coffee.
Yeah, my streaming schedule is super inconsistent, but that is my commitment to you. I can promise you inconsistency.
It's always a surprise.
Commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a surprise. So
it's like a present. It's
when
a package.
I'm streaming, I'm happy and surprised. You're happy and surprised. It's a great time.
There you go. What was the last thing you streamed?
Arkham. Wait, no, that was the last full game. I played Risk of Rain 2. There we go.
I didn't see that one. I was watching your Arkham streams.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
And you've made YouTube stuff before. I've watched you
on YouTube.
I've watched you bake a couple times, I think. It was a while back. I haven't seen any of your videos in a while.
Yeah, because I haven't made... I go all in. So like when I was between work, I was like all in on it. And as soon as work started, I was like 100% in, nothing else. So trying to find that balance. But yeah, if I start doing YouTube videos again, it'll be like little travel vlogs or baking vlogs if I don't kill Arthur, which is my sourdough starter, everyone.
I like that you named it.
Because he's from... Okay, tangent here. February 6th, I completed my King Arthur baking class for Intro to Artisan Bread Baking.
Already at the beginning, the story seems a little odd.
I wanted to get into baking more this year because after high school, I almost went into pastry chef schooling. But I didn't want to get up at 4 a.m. So that's what deterred me from just like maybe doing that as a hobby. But I slowed down on baking. So I was like, you know what, this year I'm going to do more of it. I have a workplace so that I can bring in my baked goods and all that stuff. Little did I know that bread baking class was pretty much going to become a meme in like a month and a half when everyone in the world is making sourdough bread and baking more. And then I have no one to offload baked goods to, so I just eat it all.
Whoa! I was never offered.
Anyways,
I was never offered.
I brought in stuff. I brought in meringues. I brought in... Oh shoot! What else did I make? I don't remember.
I think I missed every one of them. It was.
Yeah, I would drop stuff off and it'd be gone within like an hour and a half, and I'm just like, this is the place to bring baked goods.
Yeah. It was impossible to bring enough for everybody at NMAS.
No, it was not. I was willing to try though, but I blame it on COVID. So
goddamn COVID.
YOLO.
It's ruining. It's ruining the baking world. The office baking world is never going to recover from COVID, from the pandemic. All right.
Anyways.
Let's get into this. I started this halfway through the interview, so we missed some people early on. Started this with Denominator and Commander. Let's go into your gamer cred. One of the important things with NMAS was we were all gamers. We would all talk about gaming. We all had some really weird things. Like people would start talking about like high budget AAA games, and I'm over here going, yeah, I play a lot of modded Minecraft. I would talk about WoW, and people would be like, you play WoW? I'm like, yeah, for the Horde. And just, it wasn't that we all synced up, but we were all gamers. So what is your gamer cred? First games that hooked you, what do you got?
I remember, so if we're going like way back, I remember going
all the way back.
All the way back.
All the way. First game.
I think my very first game was probably Donkey Kong on the Commodore 64. My uncle was really into like the latest tech, so we'd get last year's tech from him, and that stuff was very expensive back then. And so I remember playing Donkey Kong before migrating to the NES and playing a lot of Mario with my sister and arguing over the controller and the when we're mad at each other, maybe turning the system off when someone's in the middle of level 7 and causing chaos. But yeah, those are some of my like earliest memories. But I always like had the latest Nintendo system growing up. Not so much on Sega or PlayStation until junior high.
I had a Commodore 128 and a book that had code for Commodore 64. And there was a little bit of thing that you'd have to do just to tell it to please accept this code. But the only thing I could do was like a high-low. Like, there was no nice graphical game on it. It was the worst experience ever. I was happy the day I graduated to like Atari or something.
Yeah.
It's odd to find something that goes all the way back to Commodore. That's not frequent anymore. And as years go on, it's going to get to the point where they're like, what is that? Just like, is that from a different country? Was that like was that France's Nintendo?
I forget who made it, but there is, you know how they're doing all the little mini console releases where you could get that. They did one for the Commodore 64. So you could get one of those with an HDMI out and you could be streaming that.
I didn't know. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. More you know.
I'm going to go
I don't
find
receive
that.
a commission.
No.
This is not sponsored, but yeah, there you go.
What games hooked you? Give me an experience if you can think of one where it was the only thing you could think of. You came home or woke up or in the middle of a conversation, thought of it and told somebody that didn't care. Like what was a hook?
I'm just going to go off of instinct. That's not necessarily the first one, but the one that stands out the most to me is Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I wasn't old enough technically to play that, so I remember having to convince my parents to let me buy it, and the Target clerk was like, yeah, this is pretty much the most violent game ever, and I'm like, you're not helping my case, man. But somehow I convinced my parents that I wouldn't be desensitized to the violence in the game, and I would get up at like 5 a.m. before school to get an hour or two into that game and then be at school and then come home to play it. And I played the hell out of that game. The soundtrack was amazing.
Yes.
That was so good. It was so good to just drive around, but the missions and the fact that there was actual voice dialogue in the game and the outfits, and yeah, it was so good. Yeah, see, chat knows what's up. But yeah, I played that game a lot, and I remember I was playing it and my mom walked into the room and it was right when I was pulling someone out of a car and I was like, please don't be the motion where you punch them in the face. Oh, sure enough, punching in the face. I'm like, I'm just borrowing it. And then of course the punch in the face. I'm like, yeah, I'll bring the car back. But I wasn't going to bring the car back.
Were you completionist? Did you go all the way through?
So yeah, I did. That was, I think, the first Grand Theft Auto game I actually beat. And it was, oh man, there were some real frustrating parts in that game. Specifically, when you have to get the crew together for the heist, you have to prove to each member that you're as good or better than them. And it was the racing one for the getaway driver where I did the cheats in that to get like a better car, but they still were like beating me. And I'm just like, what the hell? How do I get past this? I don't understand. And this still stands out to me, the only way I beat that was that he ran into like another car and like had to reverse. And then when he went forward, he ran into a palm tree. So he was just driving into a palm tree. But here's the thing. That could make your car explode, and if he dies, you lose. So I had to just like zip it to the finish line, and that's how I beat that part. So
I'm pretty sure I read once that the way those missions worked was it would scale to how well of a driver you were. So for the people that were cheating during these things, it was just as good as you.
It was useless. It was useless. I can confirm it was completely useless. So. Yeah, there weren't like achievements or anything like that at that point in those games, but yeah, that one stands out mainly because I woke up early to play that game.
Yeah, that's a weird way to start your day.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome that you can play those games at a young age and not become desensitized. But I think I wouldn't buy the argument at all if that's how you started the day. Like just knowing that's how you did it. Like what did you do this morning? You know, what wholesome
Just
conversation
wake
did
up.
you have with the family? Negative.
Yeah.
Vice City.
I just
That's what
listened to
did.
some really good music and took a nice drive. The sunset was beautiful. I was by the beach. It was very wholesome.
Oh wow. What game are you on right now?
I'm in between games right now simply because I'm moving.
Yeah.
But the next game that I want to play, I still want to finish the Arkham series. So the next one I have is Arkham City, whatever the third one is. Or is it Knight? I'm terrible at this. I can never remember if it's Arkham Knight or Arkham. It's Arkham Knight. Yes. Final answer, Bob. It's Arkham Knight. Yeah, that's the one that I'm playing through now.
Are you like a DC fan, Batman fan, or just fan of the storytelling of the game?
A little bit of both. So I'm not I'm not hard into the comic genre. I enjoy them, but I'm not gonna tell you that I have all the Batman history or anything like that. But I really do like Batman. But the storytelling and the gameplay, just like the Spider-Man, series, but Arkham really kicked it off to revamp those licensed games, and so I like it a lot. And the voice acting is so good; it's really good, and there's a lot of great like dark comedy in it. And I think they do a really great job of balancing the amount of villains that happen at any given time in the game, but still, it's not rushed. Like you're very much aware of who everyone is and who like the main baddie is, but you get time to learn to dislike a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's definitely, that series is definitely one of those games where they just amazingly nailed the VO. It's so good. I really appreciate it. It's VO is one of those areas of games where I don't need the VO. It doesn't necessarily make or break a game for me, but when it's there and it's amazing, I'll take my time. I'll slow down. I don't ever rush. I want to see it all. I'm not a completionist just to be a completionist, but if there's VO, then I want to know all that story.
Yeah, I really, really love VO. Like, I'm so impressed with people who can do it. Really embody another character. It's in some ways, I'm not going to say it's like harder than acting in front of a camera. It's just different, right? Because you still have to feel like you are acting a scene without any help around you. So in some ways it can be tough because you're not getting that visual feedback from someone else. But yeah, the thought process that goes into creating a voice, if it's a brand new character, I think is really interesting. And people who are really good at it are really good at it. And man, like Mark Hamill, like hearing his Joker, I was like, oh my God, he is amazing. And I forget Dude Bro's name, who is always Batman forever, and like all the cartoons. Kevin Conroy, there we go. He's Batman in so many things. He like is the voice of Batman.
Yeah. There's a lot of iconic voice actors like Vin Diesel and Groot. Like nailed it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and how that's not like pitched. Like that's his voice. Like he's doing that. I'm like, oh man, so good.
Hype? Is there a hype game that you're waiting on that's right there about the release and you're going to turn everything off, tell everybody to leave you alone?
Oh God, I don't know what the release date of it is, but the new Horizon.
Yeah.
Forbidden West. Horizon Zero Dawn. What an amazing game. I'm really, 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 really looking forward to playing that game. I can't wait to just sink into it.
With an amazing actress as well. Like holy crap.
Yeah, Ashley Birch.
Yeah. I miss what was her and her brother's little thing?
Oh my God. What's good? What you playing, Ash? What you playing, Ash?
Yeah.
Right?
I miss that so much. And it just dead. It just there's not, you go to that site and it's just, it ended. No goodbyes.
Yeah.
Damn it.
That's how I like to do things. I like to start things and then just disappear.
I played that game because of her. But I won't play Borderlands. Wow. I don't know why.
She's so great as Tiny Tina, though.
I know.
And Borderlands 2 was such a good game and has Troy Baker in it, too. I know Saru was like, any answer that doesn't include Troy Baker, I'm sorry. He is amazing at voice acting as well. And, yeah, sorry. Yes.
All right, gamer cred covered? Or is there a secret little...
Do you have credentials now?
I would accept it. I would accept it. Unless there's something that we passed over that you think would sink it in for everybody listening.
No, I play a lot of games. I have not stopped playing games since I was 5, I guess.
I think that's
probably
good
when
enough.
I first started playing games. So,
all right. So let's start at the beginning. How did you get to EME? Where were you at? What were you doing? What got you in the door? What's the beginning of the story?
Well, let's go all the way back.
Let's go all the way back.
Just kidding. So previously, my past life, I was in IT. Worked there for a while, just, at IT. No. I got burnt out just from not having a great experience at my last IT job. And so I took some time off to just go all in on streaming and making YouTube content and having fun with that. And saying, if I did that for 6 months or a year, if I had measurable growth in there, then maybe that would let me know, if I could even think about pursuing that as full-time, or at least give me enough space to figure out what I wanted to do next. But as I was doing that, I was only 1.5 months into that sabbatical, where my wife went to school with Space Cats's wife, Tooth Crush, and they met there, and she told me, hey, Tooth Crush's husband works in video games. I was like, cool, what does he do? He's a community manager. I was like, what the hell is that? Because as playing games, even being involved in MMOs like World of Warcraft, I never sought out community outside of guilds or outside of within the game. I never sought it from the developer or a publisher in some cases. So community management was new to me. So met and had breakfast with them and asked some questions, and it sounded very similar to managing and growing your own, community, but doing that at a video game company. And that sounded really cool. I had no idea you could do that. I was like, that's a job? You can get paid for that? That sounds amazing. So about a month or so later, he let me know that there was a job position open and that I should apply. And I did. And spoiler, I got the job. So that's how I found myself at NMAS.
Was it a glowing recommendation? Was Space Cats this is the best thing ever? I work with this guy named Keaton. He's great. That's probably how let's just move on and assume that's how the story went. So you're in the door, you're starting off, you've got that little connection of you're building a community, you're shaping something for what you were creating. Now you're asked to do it for a company that you don't know well, games that you might not have been playing. How's that gig start off? How do you get how do you become a community of a game company so that you can help build their community? How does that work?
You play the game.
Oh.
So it's really crazy. So
rigged question.
I was put on Closers because Closers was in closed beta at the time, or had just entered. I forget what status, but so I just started playing a lot of Closers, and that was my first experience with a Korean action online game. Hadn't ever been exposed to just the stylization of how you can recognize a Korean made game. There's those pieces, whether it's the art or the item system, there's just I can now see the characteristics of those games, but before it was really new to me. But I thought that was fun because it was something new and something I hadn't seen before.
And Closers really hits you hard in the character hub. At the very beginning, it starts off, and it goes. You either get some real nice melodic music, or it just goes into this riff, this metal riff. You're like, what the hell is happening?
Dude, that music is so good, and I looked it up, and that music is created for Closers.
Yeah.
I was blown away that was. I was like, wow, they put in a lot of effort for this game, and then all the story that went into it. That like Closers really did hook me, because I love story-based games. So like the fact that all these characters, like, you're gonna go down the similar plot, point. You're gonna end up in the same place, but the conversations you have with the other NPCs are different. You see a different perspective from each character that you play, and they have so many characters now. It's like it's insane the amount of dialogue in this game. And I'm someone who likes to read it, so I found it very hard to like try to catch up really quick because I'm trying to read the dialogue and understand what's going on in the story. But yeah, that's what I did, was first like approach it from learning like the material. We had a Discord spun up so I could talk and see players talk about the game there. A lot of research on forums and things like that. So yeah, that was really interesting, coming in and to games that I had not had experience playing before, but I had experience in all the other spaces of talking with community and setting like guidelines and figuring out the best way to promote content, but doing that from the perspective of a brand and, working with other partners there. It was definitely a new and challenging experience, but it was really fun.
And then only a few weeks in, crash course on get to know the team. Tell me that one.
Yeah, so that was amazing. So like a week before I started, I got a call that was like, hey, do you want to come to Korea with us? And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, it'll be your third week. But we're going to, oh my God, G-Star, which is, held in Busan. And a lot of people from the company are going, and it'd be great if you joined. And I was like, yes. And so third weekend, I find myself on a plane with a bunch of people I barely know. But I loved that because I got to know a lot of people at the company in such a short amount of time, which really helped with like, it's a great onboarding experience. I recommend every company you go to send you to Korea with all of your coworkers. But it was really great. It was really great to be able to speak with people because like when you're outside of the office, maybe your guard comes down a little bit, you connect a little easier with people. I know that's true of me. So I felt very grateful for that experience. And it was cool. It was cool to go to Korea and be exposed to that and still try to figure out fun content to do from the NMAS brand on the channel, where very clearly remember Space Cats and we saw this like cheese stick thing in one of the 7-Elevens, and we're like, okay, we'll try a bunch of like Korean snacks. And we did a NMAS live stream from the hotel room, and
I remember that.
we bit into it, and I swear I almost vomited. You wouldn't know from the stream, but I was like, this is gonna come back up. It was fish with cheddar cheese in the middle. Is like gelatinized fish, the texture of string cheese. And I was like, not something I was expecting, and then found out not something I enjoy. You might enjoy it, I do not. But yeah, did some fun stuff there. I got a live stream because Korea's internet is amazing.
We were having the hardest time though. We couldn't live stream outside of G-Star, like in the parking lot there.
That's because everyone in the world was using the internet.
Yeah, it was hard to get connection. I think that's why you got... Wasn't that why y'all streamed from the hotel room? Because we kept walking around trying to get a good signal. You absolutely couldn't get a good signal inside. Yeah, that was impossible.
Yeah, that was really hard. Like, we didn't have any problems when we were walking the fish market. Yeah. But yeah, we took a little break, and I think when we were doing the convention floor and stuff, we switched to doing video so that it could be edited later for recorded content. But it was really hard to do that live because, we were trying to connect to the internet like everybody else, and there were so many people there.
Yeah. I wasn't there. I can't say that I had that much of a culture shock. I knew I was in another country and all, but everything was still kind of like, it's, but G-Star is so much different than PAX. That's the thing that caught me. Just the way, and we were there, like the first day that we were there, it was dead. And there's so much spaced on the floor. But then the days after that, just so thick. Everybody walked in the same circle.
Yeah.
It was
That's because
weird.
they were I think the first day was the last day of exams.
Yeah.
It was like exam week, and so it's like it'll be crowded the other days, but this B2B, the business side. So we got to go over. That's what was different to me, is like really having the business on the side and party in the front.
Yeah.
And yeah, getting to see like that kind of showcasey side, which it's interesting. It's like you walk by all these booths and it's very like game focused, but it's so stark. It just feels so business oriented too. You're like, it's so weird, like mentally getting into that headspace. But yeah.
I remember we were eating at we had KBBQ with the Craft On team, because Craft On was going big. PUBG had released and was doing amazing, and they had a giant booth for PUBG, and then there was the Air booth, and then there was a little bit for Terra, but mostly like Terra Mobile.
Estelia was there. The Nexon booth was huge too.
Yeah. So we went and ate. That was a weird place to eat, because it was like an apartment complex type thing where it wasn't all connected like one big building. There were different buildings, and you went up like winding staircases to get inside of them, and they had heated floors. I hated that so much because my butt was hot. My butt was just hot. Like I was shifting, not because like my ankles were hurting. It's just like, this is terrible. This is hot. Can you cool this down? We've got a couple cushions I can sit on. But I also remember, like when you were telling me that this was like your third week in, I felt like you were completely comfortable, like you were a part of the team. So you really worked in there quickly. That's amazing. But I had, like, we were talking about how the whole time we were there, it was like nothing but meat. We were just shoving meat in our mouth because everybody wanted KBBQ. And that's all we were eating. And I just really couldn't wait to get home because I was just going to eat salad for a week.
I remember this conversation because the last K barbecue night, I was sitting across from you and we were chatting, and I found you to be just like the least predictable person. One of the least predictable people I've ever met, where you're like, I don't like all this meat. And I'm like, what? And you're like, I'm from Texas, but I don't like all this meat. I just want to eat like the lettuce and stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. People just bring out plates of meat. It's just meat, endless amounts of meat. Yeah. Like, where's the side dish?
To be honest, like I was craving something like clean and not heavily salted. So like when we came back, I got like a little bento box from Starbucks because it had carrots in it, and I was like, oh, thank God, carrots, and they're cold.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, I did that, and then I went to sleep for like 12 hours.
Yeah. That was awesome that you got to go to that trip so quick, and that you and I shared that amazing bonding moment, but you don't remember the hat, and I was probably wearing the hat. Like we were probably sitting there talking about eating meat, and I'm wearing the hat. Unbelievable. Yeah. Let's move on.
You see, it's just a hat. So
it's not just a hat. It's a Busan hat.
It wasn't a milestone for me as it was for you, it sounds like.
This is the cornerstone of yours and my relationship. So let's go over your roles. Let's build kind of a timeline, and not be fixated on a time, but just the time you're at EME. What hats did you wear?
Not the hat that you're wearing.
Not this one.
But I did wear some other hats.
I'm going to try to keep working hat in throughout the rest of this.
Yeah. So came in. It's interesting. Like as I was recalling my time at NMAS, I'm like, wow, I really like bounced around for my first year and a half. It was crazy. Came on, and I was there to really help out with closers and take that over because Space Cats was managing Terra PC, Critica, and then Terra Console was coming up in that following spring. And so I was learning the ropes of like closers, and we had launch in February. But in January, Space Cats left EME, and so now we have, closers launch happening, and then Terra Console, coming up, and they're both really important, but needed to, do my best and help out with that. Bear Shoes came on to help with closers, which was really, really awesome, so that I was able to focus more attention on Terra Console, and was focused on that for the next couple of months before we got another community manager and a senior community manager that helped out a whole bunch, to where I was then helping with Breach and the partner program. And time just goes by so freaking fast, like thinking about that. So I was in that space for probably 4.5-ish months before beginning to transition to an analyst role, where I was then off the community team, but I would still be there for, like, as an advisor or, consultant, happy to give feedback at any point or be part of any brainstorm meetings. But took on an analyst role where I'd be in that role until this past August. So yeah,
it's amazing how you don't
hats.
Yeah, and you never shake the old hats. Like you saying that.
No.
I remember I reached out to you a couple days after you'd left NMAS after the last layoffs, and I was like, hey, so I need to turn over socials to Nautic. Yeah, I'm still like on a call with you, figuring out how to do stuff. Like, no matter, even after working at EME, you still wear the hats.
I wrote wikis on how to do that too.
No one looks for a wiki first.
I know. I documented that. Yeah, I never wanted to be a single point of failure, but I had, like, I don't know. I always felt still part of the community team, because I just, like, I don't know. I'm on socials a lot, and for, like, looking at what's happening and for just the spaces I participate in, and so I still felt very much connected to that, and, like, the Discord. So never went away from community or listening to the community, but it wasn't part of my role to help manage it, at that point.
So let's go through the community work first. What's the job? What's the job for a community team at a games publisher?
You just write tweets and that's it.
That's it. Just send socials. And then if you can get software on top of that just automates the scheduling, you're like...
And you're good. Then you just play games all day.
You got 4 hours on Monday. The rest of the week is just watching them go out. And you're like, I did that. Me. Not at all. That is definitely not how it works.
Yeah.
There's always so much more to do.
There is. There's a lot to do. And I feel like community management, just like with the term business analyst or anything like that, it can mean a lot. It can be interpreted a lot of different ways. A lot of times, if you are at a smaller company, it might mean you're doing, like, influencer marketing and social media, like, management and reporting, and just, like, a whole bunch of different aspects of it. And I would say, like, from the publisher point of view, at least at NMAS, there's a lot of hats, worn, where you are kind of like an advisor to the product team. The product team might have ask you questions because you always have a pulse of how the community's feeling, what they're talking about, have a pretty good idea of how they might respond to, something. Creating your favorite sentiment reports to give you an overview about how the community's feeling from the past 2 weeks. Social media strategy, trying to create fun events outside of being a developer. I thought NMAS did a really good job in that space, where, events take place in game a lot. They're set up by the developers, but as a publisher, we don't necessarily get to create, those in-game events all the time. So trying to be creative on how you can create an event as a publisher with all the tools that you have at hand, such as, like, I know for closers, for launch, we did, like, a global community point system where it's like, every dungeon clear is a point, and if we fill this up, you unlock, some buffs. Those are some things that you can do outside of the game. So, being a community manager is, a lot of work, a lot of creativity, a lot of emotional energy, because people aren't telling you things are great every single day. So yeah, that's my rambling bit about what a community manager is.
What are the goals and philosophies? What are you chasing every day? Like, you're sending out a tweet or you're creating one of these community events. What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, Avalar said, "It's broke, just fix it." I know, it's that easy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like someone saying, "Just get good." Like, oh, you're right. That's all we have to do. It's all the work that goes into it. So goals and philosophy, I feel like that can shift per needs of the product. My goals for closers definitely like would be different from Terra Console, and different from maybe what bonus XP needed for Dark Crystal. But for me, I always wanted the community to feel like they were heard, that they had an avenue to give their feedback, and that the feedback loop was as closed as possible, that they, got to hear like what happened with their feedback, and that there was a safe place for everyone to participate in. And outside of that is creating interesting and fun things that complement the game, that the community inspired, the idea, and hopefully that they enjoy, said idea, such as, let's see, gosh, there were, I always think of the very fun classic Josh Terra videos, where he just creates these wacky videos, but it's like Terra is a little bit wacky, and so he leans into that because there's an audience, an audience from Terra that is going to watch that video and be like, yep, Terra isn't serious all the time. That was a fun thing to consume. I liked that they get it, and that I'm participating in this community. But.
So when you came into community, you started on closers, but you were there from the very beginning with Terra Console, right?
Ish. I wasn't there from the very beginning. Terra Console was in progress for quite a long time. Yeah. But I flipped gears as soon as closers launched. Like the next week, I had to switch gears to Terra, and Terra Console, and helping a little bit out with Terra PC as possible. But the focus was Terra Console because huge launch, huge deal, coming up. So, working with the manager at the time of the partner program and all of our marketing and PR and influencers and just everything that goes into it. It was a whole lot trying to do, and what Head Start was like March 26th. So from February to March, like a month to quick learn Terra Console. But I always went to wherever I felt like I could add the most value and where help was needed the most. Like, I don't know if this was, well, I'd like to say this was an option, but in my head, like, it was never an option. Like, if I really, really wanted to stay on, closers, and I need to stay with this community for the next year, I probably could have said that, but that, didn't really align with the priorities of the company. So it didn't make sense to even go down that road. But it was hard because, building up this community and getting to know them for the past 3 months, it's hard to pass the torch and then turn around and try to do that real quick again. So, but I would say having the player council to be able to talk with, and just the Discord to speak with people there was really nice and really helpful. And the people that were interested in the partner program for launch, that was, they were all very valuable and very understanding, I guess.
So something I talked about with both Josh Fulmore and Scott James, Josh Fulmore coming from creative and Scott James coming from writers, is there were a lot of things where we were siloed in our team and we were doing our team things and we didn't really communicate outward. But there was also a lot where you didn't have those boundaries. You were free to roam around, help out, and pitch ideas wherever you wanted. Fulmore did that all the time. Scott James did that all the time. I was always bringing them in. And it's something thinking about who I should reach out to and do these interviews so I can, sign off my time on an EME and put a nice little bow tie on it and ship it. I wanted to pull those people back in and get the details. And I would work with people in community from time to time, but somehow you and I rarely ever worked together. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's just a small amount of time that I was doing something else, but I would love to hear your perspective, because I know I kind of knew everybody else's perspective, but when you're working on these initiatives, when you're building something up like Terra Console and you're working towards the launch of that, or Closers, how do you generate the ideas? Where does the strategy come from? Everybody gets locked into a room until you figure it out over a weekend? Is it a slow roll and then crunch time like you hear from the industry all the time? Like what actually goes in? What are the steps? How do the teams work? Where do you pull people from?
Yeah, so I know, I feel like, we didn't get to work together on community a whole lot. I think I was in some brainstorm meetings with just like feedback on what we could measure for some of the Terra events or months, like Terra Anniversary. I remember doing a lot of brainstorming there. But yeah, I think it's important, like, especially if you're going into community management, is to understand that you are not the end all be all for all creative ideas, and that they all need to come from you, and you need to, be this like person with all of the answers. Just telling someone, okay, we need a creative idea, go. That's not how creativity works, unless you have a superpower. So it's really like finding out who you work like really well with, where you play to each other's strengths and weaknesses, or not even weaknesses, but just different perspectives. And so when coming together for like the Closers launch idea, I had a few ideas, but they didn't necessarily seem like Closers launch like big. They might be like nice ideas to do down the path, but didn't feel like a strong enough moment. So got together with the creative team, because they've always had amazing ideas, and just started brainstorming with the product manager too. Like, a group effort for something that's big, that is that big, shouldn't necessarily fall all on the shoulders of one person, unless they just happen to have this great idea that it's like, dang, that's awesome. But so definitely utilize the resources like around you. That's how I would approach it. But I would also stay in tune with what's happening in the game space, and I would do research on like, okay, what were some not necessarily launch events, but just what are some other events other companies do that are MMOs and online, and try to find out how those run, and like, okay, can we do something like that? Do we think the community would be really happy with that? Yeah, I'm big on research, so if other people are doing some amazing things, like, why reinvent the wheel?
Mm-hmm. So measuring success out of the things that your team created, the initiatives that you guys launched, how do you know they're working? Like, what are you looking for? Does the thought of how are you going to measure this, is that at the beginning? Does that something you just kind of think of and throw in at the end as a post-mortem? How's that fit in?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think you can approach it from like a number of ways. If you have an immediate goal in mind, like let's say like you, product manager of Closers, it's like, I need to improve my returning players. Like, we need to do something. I'm hurting in this area. Then we would take a look at, okay, what are some things that we know that have improved, returning players in the past, and like, how can we start planning something and that be our sole focus that we think would entice players who know Closers and love it? What are they looking forward to? What's gonna hook them back into this? And then start thinking through what ideas that could be. And then because you have a goal in mind already, like, of what you want to achieve. But there might be some other cases where it's like, we want something fun to do in 3 weeks for players. maybe there isn't a specific goal in mind, but you want it to be fun. From there, I'd focus on the idea first and foremost, like, let's make sure something's fun, and then from there, like, what can we measure, like how do you measure fun?
I want to know the answer to that.
You want to know the answer? Well,
Yeah.
Stay tuned till the end of the stream and I'll tell you all the secrets of how you measure fun. But it really, like, I don't know, for me, for something as vague as fun, how do you measure something? Because people usually don't type, I'm having so much fun in Discord or on the forums. They're going to let you know when something's not going well. So people watching, please let us know when you are having fun, because it's as important to know what you're enjoying as what you're not enjoying. But that's really hard. Qualitative is tough. So trying to match quantitative whenever possible. But knowing that, it'll give you an idea, but it might not be exact. So people having fun. Maybe I could look at the Discord and generate a word cloud and kind of get an idea for how people are talking about this week. Are they mentioning this event? I hope they are, and I hope they're doing it because it's fun, right? Did we get a higher concurrency? Did we get people engaged longer because they're having fun? They're going to be in the game more, all that stuff. So there's always points to measure, and you can, if you don't know exactly the metric that you're going to measure, I think it's still good to go back to those staple KPIs to maybe where you can, and ask. Sometimes you just got to directly ask the community, like, give us feedback on this. That's not something that we can measure from the game data. Specifically ask with a survey and give them some EMP or something like that.
So I've got a question, but it starts off with a story or maybe an admission. Maybe that's a better word. And the question is also probably an opportunity to set me right, set me straight. When I moved from QA to a production role as an associate product manager, I think that's what it was at the time. Is that what it was at the time? I think that's what it was at the time. Anyway, and I was working under Sean Neal on Terra. And it was our work was very divided. He was doing high level product manager stuff, and I was running the live service side of things, making sure builds going out, make sure bugs got fixed. But I was also in charge of events. Now at this time, we had some really big rock stars, people that I absolutely respected. Denominator was there at the time, but he was so focused on Terra Console. It was Denominator and Howrath. And they had, Denominator had been on Terra PC for a while. So now it's just Sean Neal, Sean Dynamite and me on Terra PC. And I was all into the events. I was working with Player Council. We had Google Docs. We're doing a bunch. I created a bunch of stuff. We went through and reworked all of the strong boxes. And I had this idea that, we've broken strong boxes. It shouldn't be a hardcore monetization piece. It should be more of this thing. And I created the Dungeon Delver coins and things like that so I could use them in Battleground events. And I was doing all this stuff, but I wasn't measuring anything. I never reached out to BI. I was never tracking any of this stuff. I had no idea. I'm coming from QA and I'm bug oriented. Does this work? Coming up with, when you do QA, there is data in QA, but a lot of times, like, you're just writing a test pass. You're saying, this is my expectation. This is the documentation. You're not reaching out for like that feedback, that data to reinforce what you're looking for. So I was doing all these events, and I'd go discuss stuff with people, and they would ask me, like, how well is it working? I could never answer that. And it still upsets me. I don't know if I just wasn't asking the right question, but I also know that we just didn't have a well-rounded BI team for a large part of our time at InMass in the beginning. But I never got the push. I never had anybody say that one thing I needed to hear to where I went, oh, crap, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Measuring, crap. Never did it. So the feedback I would get would be, well, why are you doing this? And I'm like, well, because players like it. They like it. And I was always told, like, you don't know if that's success. You cannot gauge success by somebody telling you they like something. Like, what effect does it have on the game? And it got to the point where I was frustrated, and I was frustrating the people I was talking to, and they would tell me, just stop doing events, because it was always like there was more that we need to do. There's always so much to do at EME and probably in the games industry in general. Like, there's not enough hours. You could work 80 hours a week. And the problem is you're just always putting more on your plate, because there's always something else that you could think of doing that would be fun, interesting, you want to know. There's so much. So events were always this thing on my plate. And I was always working. I was the only person on Terra PC that was doing events. I was working directly with Bluehold to do these things. And I'd be so frustrated when somebody would tell me, you have a lot of other things you need to do. You have publisher things that you need to do. Events are more of a dev thing. You're working on dev stuff right now. Just stop doing events. And they weren't telling me that because they really thought we shouldn't do events. They were telling me that because I couldn't tell them what was successful. I couldn't define the purpose of that time or justify the purpose of that time I was putting into events. So the only thing that I could lean towards were sentiment reports. But I was always super frustrated by sentiment reports. And it's not that I thought the sentiment report value was low. That's not it. I was looking for something. I knew that I had a problem. I didn't know what that problem was, and I was looking for something. What I was looking for was BI. But all I had was a sentiment report, which it's not BI. It's not the purpose of it. But the other side of all this is no one ever pulled me aside and said, so you want to be a product manager? This is what a sentiment report is. Never had that discussion. I just started getting sentiment reports. People just started giving them to me. And I went, what do I do with this? And it was like, well, you need to share them with the developer. I go, okay. So I get this and I share this to the developer. And I started reading the sentiment reports, and some things in there, I would read it and I go, I don't want to tell the developer this. It's either something I don't think they can action on, or I think they'll action poorly on it because I don't think we're delivering the right information. And there were a lot of things in there I'd read. I'd go, well, I already know this information. Like, I need the more critical, in-depth thinking on this. Like, why are players saying this? Why is this a problem? There was so much of that I would look at, and it would frustrate me more. And again, I'm going to say it one last time. It wasn't the sentiment report that was frustrating me. It was my lack of understanding of BI and data and how to measure what I was working on myself. And I was thinking that this is going to be it. Holy crap, somebody's doing this work for me. So I remember having conversations with you. You in particular, where you would throw that back at me. And you weren't doing it maliciously. There was no malice, but you would there were conversations, and it wasn't just sentiment reports. There were things from other points. And one, I'm not going to go in depth, but you were asking, like, when do people churn out, and like, let's run some data. And as a product manager, these things are just known. I just know these things. So I was frustrated again because there was this disconnect too. Like, well, I already know when people churn out of the game. Like, that's been known for every product manager. We pass that knowledge down tribally to one another. And then the sentiment reports would come in, and people were like, oh, well, they don't like this. There's lag. And it would be the same thing reported. And it just frustrated me so much. So the I don't tell concise stories well part of this is about to end with, there was so much value in sentiment reports, and I never could use them because I didn't understand what we were doing. Never had anybody pull me aside and say, this was the purpose of a sentiment report. You need to calm down. Just sit down. Let me walk you through this. And I came to you a couple times. I was like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. And you're like, I came to you a couple times, and I'm pretty sure you probably figured it out. I was coming to you and I'm like, can you do this for me? Like, I just need an answer. Can you do this for me? And you'd always like did I'm not going to give you a fish. I want to teach you how to fish thing. Like, you should reach out to BI and you should be asking them to do the reports. I'm like, God damn it. I just need an answer so I can go do this other. And I never did it. There was an amazing opportunity there. So I never embraced sentiment reports, never figured out how to use them well. I never dove into BI. I've done very limited BI stuff. Like, I need to do an email campaign. I have these basic criteria. And then somebody would probably come in and say, well, no, that's not really what you want. I'd go, fine, whatever. I don't care. I just need to send an email. And I look back, and this is definitely one of the biggest points of failure for me as a product manager. I never embraced how to measure. And that's why I ask everybody that I do these interviews, is like, how do you measure that? Because it's this nagging terrible point when I look back and I go, crap. I never could answer, why am I doing these events? Why are these events successful? And I never could understand the sentiment report. So if you can you tell me what I should have been getting from a sentiment report, why a sentiment report is created, what are the elements of it? I need to put a bow on this and get rid of it.
Yeah. A couple things in there, man. I wish we had this conversation years ago.
And that's why it hurts me so much, because now it's like, God damn it.
Yeah, because like what I heard in there first was that the sentiment reports were almost a distraction because you had a very pressing task at hand, which was to understand how your events that you were running, how they were doing. So the sentiment report for you at that time wasn't valuable because, like you said, it wasn't going to, unless it explicitly was like, this specific event, I liked it because XYZ, or I didn't like it because XYZ. Unless that stood out in that report was never going to have what you needed at that time in your role. So I wish we had that conversation about like you just, saying, hey, I need to measure my like events that I'm doing to understand if they're working or not. I'm not quite sure how to do that. Let's brainstorm it. I would have been like, great. Like, let's figure out what the goal of these events are, if there is any. And if we haven't thought about those, that's fine. Let's start from the beginning and do that. And then we could figure out what things we can measure, and we can plan for how to measure that goal. And then pick a couple of key points that maybe tells us some other information that are like this thing that you're working on to get new players. Maybe it's not doing that, but maybe it's really great for returning players. You still want to be able to track those things. But sentiment reports, I remember revamping those because I felt like in the beginning we were doing those and I never heard any feedback on if they were valuable or not. And so I met with the product managers to go over it to figure out what was valuable and what wasn't. And then we figured out some new things about what would be the most valuable to everyone, because it's really hard to create individual sentiment reports for every single thing without some sort of template. But the idea was that it lets it gives you the TLDR high level about the community, what they're liking, what they're not, and if there's any major concerns. And so a lot of the times, like, I think for one example, can I give this example? Yes. I'll be careful. I'll be careful.
You had everybody on the edge of their seats there, and then I went,
yeah. Oh. So for Terra Console, for time and time again, putting together that sentiment report, players complaining about dungeon queue times. And just be like, dungeon queue times are long, they're slow, and it's like, yeah, there's either a high volume in the most popular ones and a low volume and, the not as popular ones. Of course, they're going to be long, but that kept coming up. And that was one of the reasons, that's a reason to have a sentiment report is if you notice something continues to appear on the report, you have to be like, okay, we need to really focus on this piece of feedback because the players are trying to tell us something here. And we either need to answer it and say, like figure out a way to answer it so it, it doesn't come up on the report again, that it's not the most pressing thing. Found that we needed to create some data points to measure, like how do we know dungeon queue times are long? Let's get a report going about the average queue times for every single dungeon that's going on, so we can establish a baseline of what is a normal queue time and what isn't. Let's get these baselines in. And then we did find a problem with some of the queues, and we were able to work with Bluehole, who put in a fix, and now we have this report that we can refer to on demand versus having to request it. So if that feedback does come up, we can have a reference point and be able to answer that question. And then if me as the report creator sees dungeon queue times are long again, I have a report I can go check and to see if there's something abnormal happening. And if there isn't, and the sentiment isn't like that feedback isn't in great quantity, then I have the tools at my disposal to know that, okay, they're complaining because the queue took 10 minutes that day instead of 8 minutes. Am I going to let the product manager know that, or is there another item that I would rather them focus on, that is a better representation of the pain points of the community? So it's going to vary depending on who your community manager is and how they approach. Everyone's going to put together reports in a different style. They're going to listen and hear and feel things a little bit differently. But you need to be able to trust the person that's doing those reports. So I think in your future, like have a conversation with who's putting together those reports and go like, hey, I'd love to know like your process for this. Like, how do you put these reports together? What are you thinking about? That way you can understand that process going into it. So when you receive it, you know how to interpret what you're looking at. I don't know.
That's very
did
helpful.
I answer any question?
You did. But you weren't just there to hold a product manager's hand. We also had a couple different points where we're reaching out to influencers, working with streamers and YouTubers, and we had a partner program. How do you work with that? What's the goal and philosophy, and how do you measure the success of a partner program?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing that we were really excited about at NMAS about the partner program is this idea that we could offer something that not every developer could as a publisher, and that's multiple games, a variety of games to choose from and play from. It'd be a part of that. If you're part of the NMAS program, you get access to be part of all these different communities and future first looks and things like that. That there'd always be interesting new content that you didn't necessarily have to go out and find yourself. But if you liked NMAS and the games that we published, you could always pull from that for your stream and for your content, and know that we probably will have something awesome that you like, that you want to invest your time into. But yeah, partner programs are interesting. It's like sometimes I love content creators. I love working with them. I love what they do. I always try to balance the slimy marketing hat, business perspective, and then on the other side, the advocate that's looking out to try to have a really make sure that content creators are being valued and being recognized and having an interesting a compelling enough program that they want to be part of. So yeah, it's for NMAS specifically, there wasn't necessarily a goal to have like X amount of streamers. That was never the goal. It was our focus was really to work with any content creator of any community size that was excited about our games and wanted to be part of our program, to where we'd be able to give them first looks at things and show off, the latest and greatest things from our content, opportunities to be featured on Twitch front page or on our YouTube playlist, or maybe even be like commissioned to create content that they could own, but that we would upload to our socials. Really wanted to be like a really good partner to creators and have a meaningful relationship with them. And in turn, hopefully their passion for our games shown through their streams, and their communities want to participate, and play in the games with, their favorite content creators too, which hopefully in turn means more players and more quality players too, because they already have a community that they're excited to be part of, and now they can be part of this bigger community in a game.
Before we put the community section of this chat aside and move on, one thing that comes in, I've heard a couple different times, and not just since I started doing these streams, but before, while we were still operating EME, was what happened to the community team? Why'd you guys move away from that? Why'd you fire the community team? And For a company that was usually pretty good at chatting and open, this is an area where I don't know if we ever really talked about it. I don't think anything was ever released. People would just see the people they talked to disappear. So all of a sudden that person isn't there anymore, and they go on Twitter and they're like, I've been let go, I'm looking for the next gig, anybody got anything they can point me towards? So what is the story of the community team? Where did it go? How did it change? Did it end? Did it get dissolved? Like, what's the story?
Commander? No.
Commander.
So yeah, that's hard. It's always hard when a company goes through a lot of changes and the community doesn't feel like they know what's going on, or they don't feel taken care of. So that sucks to hear if people felt that way. Yeah, I would say, again, like, community management, like EdMass had we tried a couple different initiatives for how we could do things very player centric and focused, and trying things from a publisher perspective. We published a lot of East to West games, and I think what's kind of unique about that is being a community manager in that sense, still as a publisher. I think the community expects a lot from community management. Like, it's broke, fix it. Like, the best we could do is be advocates for the players and educate, the developers. And we worked with some really great developers that got it and did their best. But I think at the end of the day, my opinion is that it's really hard to affect change as a publisher for a global product when we're a publisher for a slice, like North America specifically. If people are like, hey, this class is broken, it's like, well, is it broken for the global product? Only the developer knows that. We can give them feedback about the North American player player perspective, but the developer is going to be the subject matter expert and have the tools at hand to be able to understand, like, if that's a global problem, or if it's something solvable, or if it's just an education problem, who knows. But I think at the end of the day, we just weren't able to, I guess, deliver on what we really wanted to do, simply because we were a publisher. And that, I don't love how that sentence just came out, but I think we tried really hard, and we tried a lot of different things. And to Commander's what he's saying, the developer might not have a global perspective. So I think it's just, I think it was a good challenge, and that NMAS really wanted to do the best by the player and by the developer. Like, we really took on every project as if we were in that developer studio, caring for the product, caring for the players. But at the end of the day, we're not in that studio with the developers all the time and have that level of trust. The developers might not know who I am, who I'm giving this feedback. How can I build that trust for them, so that they can understand with the feedback that I'm giving, that they know how to interpret that, because they know me and they know how I listen to the players. And it's that trust. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting challenges about being a community manager as a publisher. I think we tried it, and I think we did a really good job at giving it our absolute best shot at it. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it met our expectations for the players. I don't know. Did that answer your question at all?
It did. Yeah,
Cool.
it's a hard thing, right? It's and it goes back. There's so much. There's so much these seem like simple questions, and the answers only take a few minutes to really get through. But really, that was 10 years. That was a big chunk. That was a lot of hours a week, and you don't have that time to go back and say, well, how are we doing? Are we hitting it? Because you got 3 things that you're turning off, 5 things that you're still working on, and 4 things that you're about to spin up. You don't have this very clear time of, okay, well, let's just sit down and think about it. And that's, again, one of the reasons I'm absolutely loving these kind of conversations, because now it is, right? Nothing's ahead of me for NMAS. These initiatives are all done. And I now have this opportunity to look back. So it's one thing to talk about them and to go, oh, yeah, you know what? I don't think we were nailing it then. But at the time, there were so many times where I was like, well, I'm not getting this done the way I want it to get done. But there's no obvious solution for me right now. I don't know how to turn it around. But I do have these 3 things that I can do right now that could have positive results. And you just put it on the back burner. And we keep going on. But, that problem may still be there, and it's still affecting the community, and it's still affecting that product, and it's still hurting your relationship with your developer. It's one of those things. I hate hindsight questions, because no matter what, I always tell myself, no matter what, the decisions I made were the right ones because I made them with the information I had at the time to have the most successful outcome. Like, there's no way I could have made a different decision back then. That was the right decision because it was my best decision. I never took all my decisions and said, well, this one would be the best. This one would be okay. Well, this one's really going to suck. Let's go with the shitty one. That's never how you make that happen. You pick the one that you think is going to have the best outcome. And now, years later, you're looking like, God damn it. If I had just done this one thing, dude, it's terrible to think that way. I think. I hate doing those things.
There was a piece of advice that I was given that I really like, and it's called "Don't shit on yourself." And that's what it is. Like, you can say, I should have done this, I should have done that, but you're just beating yourself up for something that you have no control of changing, which is the past. But what you can't change is the future. And so by doing this introspective reflection, you're learning from it and figuring out how you're going to apply it to the future. But you shouldn't shit on yourself over the past.
Right. Fingers crossed that's what I'm doing. Learning.
It's like a chat here. I wanted to read, because that was some heavy stuff. I like what Commander said, which is that the optimal configuration is when players and developers build an intimate relationship. Like, that's ultimately the best, the best thing for everyone. Like, seeing developers be really integrated with players and they can still have a community manager. I think that's still valuable, but they're not removed from speaking with the players and really asking for that feedback in a direct manner or participating in that feedback in that sense. In Counterpoint, it's like what the players wanted and expected. The sim community team would be the conduit for that relationship, but it assumes a lot of things. Yeah, it's hard when community is often the face of the game, right? Like, you're given a community manager or a community team in a face, and that's your person, to interact with. That's your conduit to the game, to the feedback, to everything. But, I'm not necessarily calling up, our internal process might be for us to speak with the product team, and then the product team might be the ones to have that type of conversation with the developers, and then who knows, what happens from there, and vice versa. There's a lot of different internal configurations that could happen, but the community doesn't necessarily know the inner workings. The goal and the dream is that the community doesn't feel the pain points of not, missing that the community gets what they need from the avenues that are available to them. But that's not always the case. Trying harder isn't always the right solution. Yeah, just try harder. Just do it. Just do it. There was one of my managers at a past IT job said that there's a inspirational speaker that was gonna come who was a employee of the very same company, and everyone was like, oh man, so and so's giving a talk, like so and so, like really hyping this up. They were so excited because they've heard him talk before. And my manager's impression of how it went was like, he just went up there and was like, if you want to do better in your job, just do it. If you want to go out and make these great connections with our customers, just do it. If you want to level up and be the best you can be in your role, just do it, do it, do it. And that's what Commander's Try Harder reminds me of.
Yeah. I will always carry with me something Commander would say, and it was a blue sky scenario. I fucking hated that. Anytime he took the conversation to blue sky scenario, I can't walk out of this office and turn a blue sky scenario into a legit thing. Like, bring me back to reality, Commander.
Yeah.
All right. Communities covered. We've got it. You moved on to extremely exciting and absolutely not visible stuff after that. So what was happening? We had this community team. You came in. It had some typical players. Some of that would shift, but then all of a sudden, like, bam, bam, community just roller coastered. We brought in a new main head of community CS, I think, at the time, and then that wasn't what we wanted. So came in with a whole new team, and our players are seeing this like, hey, people are disappearing and things are shifting. What the hell is going on? So you're going through this roller coaster, but from that, you're starting to see something interesting. There's an experiment. There's a question. There's a role. How did that thought come in? And then how did you get that thought to actually happen?
Yeah. I think, being did join the secret society. I think so. Being on the community management team, we're giving qualitative feedback, and of course, the response is, how can we make this quantitative, right? Like, if you're giving me this feedback, how can I action on it? Do we have the answers at our hand right now to where we don't need to speak to the developer right away? We can do some work on our end before presenting maybe a solution, or presenting the problem with a few suggestions for ideas on how to solve it. And so I got, later than desired, but I got my hands on our BI site and started to play around in there, and met with some product managers to understand the terminology and what they measure and what they look at, and understand what they're tracking and what's important. And from there, I started to pay more attention to that. And when a problem would come up, I would try to see if I could correlate any of the data to the problem that the players were speaking with or speaking about. And so from there, I started doing more like data exploration, and like, oh man, like we can actually answer a lot of questions, or at least, I can correlate a lot of the data to some of these problems, I can see that there's a possibility for us to make a request of data that could answer, some questions, to answer if it really is a problem before presenting it, And so that's the rabbit hole that I started to go down on. The Terra Console Dungeon Q one was one of the first ones that was successful in figuring out, taking the player qualitative sentiment, turning it into something quantitative, and turning it into a repeatable report that we could look at, that was no longer going to be an issue for us to answer if there's a problem. And so I started to dive more into that, and started to dive into how we can measure things better. Like anytime we had a Twitch Prime promotion, I went down the rabbit hole, and I was like, oh man, I can see like the new players that came in, the players that came back, all this stuff. Wonder what the top items, these new players from this promotion are enjoying. Maybe that speaks to something, or maybe we can follow that cohort and see like, hey, these people bounced at, level 20, in Terra. Like, what's happening at level 20 in Terra? what's the pain point there? And so there's so many questions you can ask of data, and data is a slippery slope because it can be very interesting and you can get lost in interesting and not have something actionable. But I felt like I was able to work with teams to figure out what the priorities were and try to help them either answer those questions about like, hey, you're doing this promotion. What data do we need to start tracking so that I can understand if this is successful and if this is something we should do again? And that kind of turned into its own role where I became an analyst of market and player insights, where I would report on opportunities and what's happening in the market, if there's any opportunities for us to action upon that at en masse, and then also continue to work on how we can measure things, and kind of became like an internal trusted advisor, consultant to a lot of different teams, like brainstorming the Terra anniversary, like figuring out what's going to be really awesome, what are some fun community things we can do, but then how can we track some of these things, and how are we going to measure the success of this event? There's probably a lot of small things, or not small things, but a lot of parts to an event like that might have different goals, that we want to track. So kind of went down that road, and that's where I left the community team in very great hands of Kitty Cup and Bear Shoes and Brian.
Brian, quotation mark, Brian. Yeah.
I know. He was so funny with that. Yeah. So.
And the community grabbed it too. That was amazing. Like, I saw him do it, and then I saw everybody else saying Brian. I'm like, you guys just latched onto this. Like, this is your favorite thing. What the hell happened? So I kind of want to stall on that for a second, and push on a little bit harder. And there may not be an answer here, but it is one of the few times where I don't want to say the culture, but how I saw en masse work. This actually differs. One of the things I love about en masse is I never had a boundary. I was in the playtest group with Scott James, and I went from there to QA. And first day on the job in QA, Tree Shark is the lead. We had, 8 to 10 people. I can't remember how many people were there. But we had, our group that was the localization group. We had an SDET that built us our tools, and we were QAing, and we were building all these test passes. And I wanted to know how these things work, because I always want the details. I put emotion aside. I just give me all the data. Tell me how this works. I need to know. And it was just such a big thing. And we had so many writers. It was just this massive thing. And I latched onto the style guide. So it was like, okay, I've got the writer style guide. One of our big things is localization. I'm going to grind this. And I would just go through and grind the zones. And I would do 100 bugs just for ellipses in Terra quests and piss the writers off. But I would just focus, and I would go to town on this thing. But nobody was telling me what to do. It was, you go find it. Go find the problems. En masse was always really open about go find the problems. And I don't remember who said it, but somewhere along the way, somebody had said, if you find a problem, you now own that. Like, you own it. Don't ever tell somebody, hey, I think that person can solve that for you. You walk that person over there, and you introduce, and you make sure that problem is now handed off, because somebody brought the problem to you. Own that for that bit of time. So I'm coming through QA, seeing this and taking charge of things. And I own this bug, and I own the style guide. And then I started getting a more leadership role in QA. And now I'm telling the other QA people how to do something. And what I shifted there was, we don't have associate product manager roles. We had Tree Shark. Like, that was it. And he had to do a bunch. So it was like, how do we step up as a QA team and fill some of this gap? So I started telling people like Missouri, and Sarah Ranlett, and I was telling them, like, you own this. Like, I'm going to be your manager in the things that I need to be a manager, but really what I'm here to do is keep you protected. If there's something falls apart, I'll step in and I'll take that off your hands so that you can focus. But what I really need you to do is become empowered. I need you to own every step of this and control it and do whatever you need. Just jump on anything that you can help on. And that's how I always understood en masse. Titles didn't matter. No one cared about that. It's just, What can you do to help? And you've said the same thing, you go where you're needed, but you did something different. And I don't understand how or why that happened, right? I came up with, I honestly don't care what my title is because it was absolutely meaningless. Now, if I went and tried to get another job, then my title would be ultra important because that's how I'd get, money. But at EME, I didn't care, and I didn't care about anybody else. And I had conversations with QA, Rocks, who's in charge of Terra right now. He came through QA. And one of the first days I sat down with him, I told him, your skill set is QA, but you're not a part of the QA team. You're a part of the Terra team. This is why you're here. These are the people you're working with. You're working with the people working on Terra. So bring me your tool set of QA, but you will always be part of my team. That's where you fit into this group. So you saw a problem. You saw an area where EME needed to level up, an EME term that we loved using. And you actually went and made it a role. You actually went and built a title around what you needed to do. And I find that absolutely curious. Like, what the hell? Why didn't we do that? Why weren't people looking to do that? I mean, eventually we did get like associate product managers and stuff like that, but it never crossed my mind to, we need these positions. So what was that? Why did you decide I want to create this role? How did that work? How did you sit down in front of Commander and say, here's what we're going to do?
Yeah. Commander says I asked. So I found that I was really enjoying what I was doing outside of the community team, which is kind of being this floaty person that could float between products and teams and identify what would be the most valuable to spend the time on and what would be valuable to that team. And if I had trust with that team, then it means that I could be even more effective because they understand that I'm there to help and hopefully lift them up. And I wanted to do more of that, not just doing stuff after the fact, but figuring out how to be part of things from the beginning. Because that's where you can be like, let's make sure we have those things to measure, like turned on, versus after the fact where we might not be able to answer all of the questions that we need to answer. But Commander was very generous with his time. I had a lot of like really great conversations with him, and I wanted to continue doing this outside of the community team, and I met with a lot of people internally as well, and did some research on kind of like what role I would propose. And so I found that Riot had an insights team, and I thought that was interesting. And I have a lot of YouTube videos that are like an hour long about presentations on parts of what the insight team does. There's data scientists, they're huge. They have a lot of data to work with, but a lot of the discovery, the measuring, presenting opportunities, all was sounding aligned with what I was doing and what I wanted to be part of my role. So I had that conversation with Commander, and I pretty much like asked for that to be my role after proving that that's what I was doing for the past month or so. Because it's one thing to ask for a role that you haven't been doing at all and saying, trust me, give me this role, like I can do it, but you haven't offered, you haven't given anything extra to show that you can do it. So I try to make it really easy to say yes. So I had done some of that work for the past month and a half, and was able to point to some examples in the history, being on the community team, about why I would be good for that role. And luckily, NMAS is really awesome, and Commander's like, yeah, let's do it. So that's how I got that role.
So day one, you shift into it, and you've got all this research that you've done. You've studied the industry, and this is what you've got. You know what the goal is. You got it all laid out, like step by step, bit by bit.
No.
All the tools are there.
No, we tried a couple different things. So I shifted over to, I guess, the business operations team, where there was one other person, the director of corporate development, and then, of course, Commander at the helm. And we talked about like ways that we think we could experiment with adding value. One of those was creating maybe a quarterly report on the North American market and players and trends that we're seeing and potential opportunities and what our take is on that, and provide that as value to craft on, as a like, hey, like, do you think this is valuable? This is something that we can do, as well as to our own office, because as you know, a couple of weeks can go by and you don't know this crazy new thing happened on Twitch that you should know about, or hey, did you know like Fall Guys is doing amazing and their social media manager, did XYZ. Like there's a lot of interesting learning opportunities. So we experimented a lot with, I guess it'd be like education, for both the parent company, potentially to developers and to the teams at NMAS. Tried a lot of different things to see what would stick, and then what sticks is what gets repeated. So had some idea with the focus of being like market research and player insights and helping in those areas, but sky's the limit, so a lot of experimentation and trying things, and if something didn't work, figure out why it didn't work and what was missing and try a new thing.
So one of the things that you were working on was we would periodically throughout our time at MAS, we would look at other games. We would evaluate other games.
Yeah.
So you started building this system, how that feedback works, how the play tests work, everything that goes into that. How did you build that up? What were you looking at? Was there problems that you were looking to solve? Was it, I'm creating this thing from scratch? What was your experience with it?
I like creating programs and I like research and I like reports. I'm super nerdy in that sense. So, the director of corporate development originally was coordinating a lot of the playtests the studio was doing, but he also did a whole bunch of other things, and having player insights be part of what I'm doing, it made sense to take on that role of playtests and feedback and all that stuff. So just like what I did with the community sentiment reports, I just took a look at the reports that we were making and figured out like, okay, what's going to be the most valuable to the report consumer? Because I can create a report that I like and that I think is super valuable, but if no one else sees that value, then the report is meaningless. So always speak with the report consumer and try to understand what is important to them to make sure that's included and highlighted in said report. So I always try to create things to where if the CEO, the top of the top of the top, like looked at the report, that they would feel proud of it, and that I would feel like I wouldn't feel shy about them seeing it. That it's not just some like thing that I threw together in haste. So I try to figure out what's repeatable and what would be valuable, and I did research on player. Playtest reports, user testing, like all this stuff, and try to figure out how to recreate that in the questions that we ask the internal playtesters at NMAS, and then get that feedback into the report that would hopefully be valuable and consumable by the senior leadership team, and if we chose to share it with the developer that we were potentially going to work with. So
during the commander interview, I told a little story, got a little emotional, and one of the terms in there that I would still love to one day get a definition for, because if I do, I think that I could just pivot from that the rest of my life and coast off of it. It'd be an instant moneymaker if I could do it. So working with these devs, working internally with our playtesters, evaluating these games, it just seems like what you're trying to dial into there is the feels. Do you think that through the course of evaluating games that you discovered the definition of the feels? Because I'll tell you now, like, I fucking still don't know. I don't know. I know I can do a demo, Commander. What the hell are the feels? Is that what you were getting towards? Like when you're doing this, what's the selling point? Or am I off? Do I not understand evaluating games?
So it depends. There's a lot. There's so many things to go in here. So one thing definitely that's important when like doing these playtests and getting the feedback from people is if they felt excited for the game that they were playing. But you have to, like, there's so you can look here, you can look here, you can look, there's everywhere you can look. There's so many rabbit holes and tree branches you can go down, but basically, like, one, it's like knowing your audience. So the playtesters, like if we're playtesting an asymmetric ARPG, then I better hope that at least half of my playtesters are fans of this genre. Because if I have people playtesting this that aren't, the feedback to me and to the leadership team is not going to be useful because this isn't our target audience. But their feedback is still valuable because maybe they're not a fan of that, but they're a fan of other types of games. And so we're like, oh, there might be some crossover here. Anyways, so one, like, know your audience there. But two, you're like, yeah, asking questions about how they felt about the game. Like, did you have fun? But there's so many ways you can ask that question. Like if it's an MMO, do you see yourself, like, what do you see yourself doing every day in this game? If you don't have anything to say to that, then you're probably going to play this game for like a week and then not return to it. So like, what keeps you coming back? It all depends. There's so many dependencies to this question, Keaton.
If you really, want to geek out right now, we do an hour and a half on this. Go for it.
I would totally tweak, depending on the game. If it was like a boxed product, if it was an online product, etc. If it had multiplayer, if it had PvP, I would tweak the survey so that we're capturing like some of the core components, feedback of the core components of the game, to make sure those are fun. So yeah, there's not one secret formula to be like a survey is never done. Like, it's never like, I've created the ultimate survey, I'm going to use this for the end of time because it's going to answer my question completely. This is just one part of the piece, right? Like, getting the playtesters' feedback, the level of excitement. If we have that, great. That's amazing. It's great that we have people who are excited to potentially work on this, because that means they're going to do the best job possible. Like, if you like what you're doing, you're probably going to put a lot of like good work into it versus if you don't like what you're doing. But then from there, there's so many other factors for evaluating games, like doing comp analysis, doing research on the developers and the studio. Like, are we a good fit as a team to work together? Let alone the excitement for the game, cost, all that stuff. There's so much that goes into it, but at the forefront, it is super important, and it was always important for NMAS that we had excitement at the studio for the thing that we were playtesting. Because if you don't have that, like, we really felt like that was a disservice to the developer. We weren't there to just cash in, cash out. Like, we really wanted to have meaningful relationships, and that meant that, like, that we really cared about the product too. So all those games that we published, we really cared about those games. Like, we really cared about them.
So I want to see if I can get you to push me along again. I got another one of these questions. I actually got two of them.
Two.
Yeah. I've talked to you a little bit about this, but this is something that goes back to a point of immaturity, a point of I wasn't there yet in my career to really have the conversation, to get to anywhere good. I've had this conversation with Tonka back in the day, and still, like, probably a couple of weeks ago, we had the same conversation, which is sad. I've had the same conversation for 10 years and I haven't progressed. Holy crap. But Bear Shoes, I've had this conversation with Bear Shoes too. And it's a point that brings in a lot of emotion, which I'm terrible with. Anytime somebody starts getting emotional, then I start wanting to poke them a little bit and see how emotional they can get. And I don't know why.
Jesus.
I'm an asshole. I get sidetracked. The Guffy side comes in. But in what I was working on, I needed to know if things were successful. But then I had other people coming to me and they wanted to work on things. And being a product manager, a lot of roads will lead to you eventually. A lot of initiatives are going to come to you. So I would have Kitty Cup would come to me, and this is one I look back on and I just sincerely regret the way I approached it. I think amazing things could have happened, and I just messed it up from the very beginning, and I feel bad about it. But Kitty Cup would come to me and she would want codes because she was doing something on Fridays. I can't remember exactly what it was now.
Free Code Friday.
Yeah. So she would need codes. And she had been working with Sean Dynamite on closers, and then Sean Dynamite got his dream job and left. So I took over closers, and Sophia started coming to me, and she would ask the same thing. Hey, I need you to create some codes for me. And I pulled her into a room. I was like, look, I want to work with you. I want to make this happen. What are you trying to do? And her response was, I'm trying to make people happy. And that was what she gave me. That was her KPI. I want to make people happy. And I didn't know how to talk to her. I didn't know how to help her out. I was in a position where I should be helping, and I couldn't do it at that point. And I basically just gave her just some shit. I was like, that doesn't do anything for me. As a product manager, I need to make sure that my product's getting promoted. You're trying to build this tool, but you don't understand it. And it was an awful conversation. I couldn't help her. I didn't know how to talk to her about it. And I didn't know what we needed to measure. And I didn't know how to communicate to her what we needed to measure. And it should have been a moment where I challenged myself. It should have been a moment where I said, okay, here's a problem. I need to find a way to solve this. That was my job. That's what I should have done. But it could have been an awesome moment for me to help her, something she was doing. She didn't know how to measure. She didn't know what her KPI was. So from there, I exaggerate things. I tunnel vision on things. So my current exaggerated tunnel vision is all things can be measured. All things. I want that to be true. And there's a reason. I'm not trying to just be delusional, but it goes even back to me running events for Terra PC. When I would talk to the people that were just so much smarter than me, and the end of that conversation would always be, well, then just stop doing events. They were telling me, you're doing something you can't measure. You're doing something you don't understand. You're just throwing stuff at the wall. You're just doing things. And that's eating up a lot of time. You don't know if you're being successful. And it was so ultra frustrating. So it's this same problem of I don't know how to measure. I don't know what's there. So my exaggeration becomes, I won't do it unless I know how to measure it. I'm going to take the time to do this. I just wasn't mature enough to have the conversations while I was at EME. So now, still having these conversations with people, I understand more what I was looking for. And what I was looking for is, if you tell me we're trying to make this fun, we're trying to make people happy, then what is the actual outcome? What's the behavior you're trying to do? And I think if we push on that, maybe I can get to where I'm going. I'm still learning this. I'm still building on this. I haven't hit that point yet where I know what I'm doing. But you're returning players. If you're pushing something on socials, are you getting people coming back to the game? If you're creating an event, does your average playtime go up? Those are the things I'm looking for. Those are the things that we do have on our BI page that we can go reference daily, weekly, monthly. Does this affect revenue? Does this? There's KPIs that we already had, but I want to see if I can give you my problem and you just immediately solve it so that I'm ultra successful. If you can't define me the field so I can put that on YouTube and make money the rest of my life off the royalties of that, then help me with this one. I believe everything can be measured. Now, I don't mean that any variable you think of can be measured, because some of it's the difference between qualitative and quantitative, right? Like this is different. You're going to get different things from different variables. But can I take an initiative knowing what I expect the outcome to be and create data from that? Can I sit down and build up the data so that I can evaluate that at some point? Or are there just things that you're going to have to say, I'm shooting from the hip, we'll see if people like it? I really want to believe all things can be measured. What's the answer?
It's a loaded question there. Like, how to measure happiness? Like, let me know if you find the KPI for that. Because a lot of things, happiness is means different things to different people, right? It's not like a 1 or a 0. You know, if players kill X boss, does that mean they're happy? Like, maybe their matchmaking experience was bad and they didn't have a good time, but they were in the game. They defeated the boss. They keep coming back, but are they happy? Like, I don't think you can measure everything. I think you can do a really good job of being mindful of data points that you can keep track of and not missing the opportunities of things you can measure. But I think one thing that I heard there with like Kitty Cup, you know, for the Free Code Friday initiative, there's something to be said about doing things and not expecting anything in return. And that's how you build trust. That's, I think, how you can build good relationships too. And so by trying this initiative of Free Code Friday, where, you know, come out, we're going to play a game, we're going to hang out, and we're going to give away some codes, that is creating a spot where we're not demanding money from players, right? You know, we're just saying, come here, let's have a good time. We're going to give something away. Hopefully that delights you, and that you had a good experience with us, you know, and maybe that makes them come back to NMAS and Terra. But by trying to expect something from every single action that you take, expecting something in return, that's not a good, in my opinion, not a good foundation for a good relationship. If I came to you at work and the only reason why I come up to you is because you're going to give me something in return every single time, and I'm never going to give you something that could help you in your role out of the pure goodness of my heart, that's probably not going to feel great. So that's kind of like my perspective there. I think Free Code Friday, just to tack onto that, was an interesting program to continue to maintain the Twitch audience in a more direct way of being able to freeform talk to the audience, and build and have a good relationship bonding. It also is an opportunity to continue building and maintaining that audience on socials. And, you know, I think there were things maybe to measure there, but at the end of the day, I think it was a good thing to do as a relationship, as a good relationship piece with our players.
You're 0 for 2. I'm going to try to pull the win out of this one.
Wait, hold on. Counterpoint. Counterpoint is talking. Let's see here. I think you guys undervalue the importance of just maintaining a positive relationship with the players, so like being able to quantify the benefit. See, it got counterpoint on my side here. Yeah. So it's hard when you train players that, okay, we're going to do this program, and then it's always hard taking things away. You know, it's really hard. We're not going to do this anymore. When Space Cats left, no more Mongo, no more, you know, really in-depth community events for a number of reasons why. But the players came to expect that. And then that person leaves, and then that initiative ends at that same time and not replaced with something else that feels as, you know, meaningful or as big. It hurts. And so continuing to take things away from players, that's just really hard. But
So I started this off by saying I'm not at the point where I know how to talk about this yet. I'm not at the point where I know how to get where I'm going. You haven't convinced me because I still think that I'm fundamentally failing. So what you're saying to me still seems like you're saying, here are the things I would measure. So
I see. I think for that particular example, that there may have been other goals in mind, but I really think, as Commander's saying, the goal simply could be creating a delightful experience.
Right.
And that's
how do you measure that? Can that be measured? Because I think that can be measured. I don't know how, but I don't understand why you wouldn't be able. Because at some point you're going to evaluate it. At some point, if you come to me and you say, I want to delight players and build the relationship. You have two things. I'm delighting players. I'm building a relationship. There's two things. You've given me your two endpoints, your two criteria. How do you know if you're successful? What are you looking for? It's not a trick question because I don't know the answer. That's what, so what is it? I have to believe at some point you're going to do a postmortem. At some point you're going to look. At some point we're going to do another initiative 6 months from now where you're like, all right, here's a new thing that I'm going to do that's going to delight players and build a relationship. How do you know if that one was equivalent, more or less than the other one?
Well, God. So if I really were to dig down into this particular example,
choose an example that you want to use if it's easier.
No, I got to continue on this example because you have me thinking about it now. So I'm thinking about my mind is going through all the freaking data points now. One, like Free Code Friday happening via a Twitch stream, that immediately is a place where our players are hanging out outside of our game. So we can't track directly, how many of our players are showing up to the stream. Maybe some people are taking a break from the game, but they still want to stay in tune with the community. So this is like a fun thing for them to stay engaged with because they still like hanging out with the people, and this is a spot where they can do it. Can't measure that, but that could be a potential place. But Free Code Friday, if you take a look at the people who redeem the code, you could always follow what their behavior is like. Did they stick around in Terra or whatever game longer? How often do they return? You could find out a whole lot of different things about the players that redeem the code, and maybe that was like a really delightful thing, or maybe there's nothing there. There's nothing there to answer a story, but that getting something, winning something for free for showing up and being part of a community feels good. You have to trust that makes someone feel good. And so that should, to me, be reason enough to do it.
I still want data. I still want to be able to compare. I still want to be able to do a postmortem, which brings me to my last...
Wait. Hold on. Hold up. So let's say you were tasked with doing an initiative for closers to delight players. How would you how would you think about that? What's your thought process there?
Again, I mean, it goes to what you're saying. There's a lot of different ways to do things, right? So I'd have to inject some assumptions here. Let's say I'm doing something in-game to delight players. My expectation is I would immediately go look, did my unique user go up? Do I have more people logging in now during this event time than I did prior? And once the event ends, what happens? Do people stop logging in? Did it move the needle? Is that right? I always screw this up. Tick the needle, move the needle, whatever. It's something that got passed around EME and I never could figure out how to actually say it. Anyway, I would look, did my UU go up? Or am I getting more people logging in each day during this activity? Length of play time. Are people playing longer?
Sorry, no. Just people playing longer and more unique people showing up in the game equal delight?
I think so, yes. And to me, so like I log into Terra right now, and it's what do I have to do? I could stand around in High Watch all day, or there's an event that gets me out of High Watch. So I'm willing to make that assumption. Go look at the number of players that are standing in High Watch. Do you have less people standing in High Watch during your event? They're engaging with the content. We all play games because we want to engage with the content. I don't play Terra because I want to stand in High Watch. Terra is not a social app for me. It does serve the purpose of a social app. I love jumping in and talking to Lucky and Pez and the people that I'm meeting there. I'm making new friends as I play Terra. Shout outs to Mana Junkies and Dragon something something, who was a OP Lancer that carried me last night. But the reason I play games is because I want to log in and I want to engage. I'm playing Spellbreak right now, which is something we also looked at when it was called Longshot. I love this game, but the community's dying off, and I play at night when it's mostly bots. So I log in, and there's always 3 quests for you. Every 24 hours, there's 3 quests. Log in, and I complete the 3 quests. Some quests are easy, some are hard. But once I'm done with those quests, I log out. So that is driving my engagement. That is bringing me back to the game. And I'm having fun. Now, sometimes it's do 300 damage as Frostborn. I'm like, oh, I suck with the Frost Gauntlet. But I do enjoy completing that quest. That drive, that engagement is rewarding to me. So when I create an event in Terra, or I create a social event.
Sorry, it sounds... not to say what you just described isn't delightful, but yeah. It literally sounds like just the completion part and checking something off was fun, but not necessarily the content.
Yeah.
So to me, it just sounds like it could have been anything as long as you're checking something off. Like, how is that really a delightful experience? How is that a more delightful experience than writing a list and crossing something off?
Because there is the other side of it where we've created events and players don't do it. They don't want to engage. The rewards aren't rewarding. Oh, I hate when I do that. The reward value isn't equivalent to the engagement requirement. And you'll have players tell you that immediately. Oh, I don't like this, and they don't engage. And you can see that, like, oh, look, engagement didn't go up because I don't see players logged in longer. I don't see players engaging. If you have an actual in-game item that you can track, then I can go look, like, how many times was this redeemed? How many of these things did people get? If the event lasts for 3 weeks, was there a lot of engagement the first week, but that died off quickly the second and the third week? And what do we have a problem with? Did they buy everything in the store and then we just didn't have enough for them to stay engaged? Or was it they realized after the first week that this all kind of sucks and they definitely wouldn't have enough currency to buy everything out of the store and they just didn't like the event anymore? So I'm never going to get the answer I want, right? I'm never going to be able to clearly define why they liked it. But I can see through data if they like it or not, because you're going to get somebody in there that says, I don't like this event. But how much do you get of people saying, I like this event? And it always seems like it's weighted towards the negative than it is to the positive. And it makes it to where I don't want to rely on just the sentiment itself. I want to go look at the data. How did I shape this? How do I affect this? And I think ultimately, so here's something else that I really have a hard time with. The game Wolcen. I love the game Wolcen. Holy hell, it's a case study in how to screw up. But I love the game. I won't play it. Black Desert Online. I think Black Desert Online's combat is still superior to Terra's. But I'll still play Terra. Spellbreak is great. I'm just logging in for the quests. Love Minecraft, but I can't think of any mod packs right now. So if you ask me what my favorite games are, they're the games that I don't play. So what's the value there? If I'm a publisher and I need to generate revenue, if I ask what the favorite MMO is, my favorite MMO is X, but that's not the one I'm playing, then sentiment is not the answer. There's something missing. There's details I got to dig into. And I think that's what the data will show you is engagement. And you could do an event that engagement goes through the roof where you do get a lot of people coming back to the game, but they don't play that long. But maybe that's all I needed. Maybe I just needed them to log in for 5 seconds. I just wanted UU to go up. Or maybe I think my UU is good, but players aren't in the game that long, and I want the player population to feel fuller. So if through the course of 24 hours, people are logging only in for 30 minutes, but over the course of that whole 30 hours, it's just spread out. Well, if I can increase that 30 minutes to 2 hours, then I increase the player population seemingly to other players because you're going to see people more because there's a lot more overlap. And that's going to make people feel better about the game. They're going to stand around and high watch and see more people. So all these little things that I can push and that I can track and see how successful I am, I believe that those are generating that sentiment, and it's ways to measure. So I can't measure it exactly, and I can't tell you, yes, this event is fun, but I can show you that I'm engaging with it. I can show you that I am logging in to do it. And I believe for the majority of players, they're not going to log in to do the shit that they hate. If I give them something they hate,
you just said you'd log into Spellbreak and do these quests, because even if you don't like them, because you just complete them. But
I don't like some of them.
You're absolutely delighted by them.
I don't like some of them. I like the challenge. I like the thing that pulls me. I like that it pulls me into the game. Yeah.
So, I think to me it sounds like I hate to put words into your mouth. I think you're going to struggle with this concept for a bit, just with how you're still. I think your belief that that delight can be 100% correlated with data. And I think
I won't go that far. I'm not saying 100% correlation. I have a background in psychology. I understand correlation, causation.
Yeah. Also, having delight be measured in quantity, like, that's also really tough, because you could have an amazing event that affects a small amount of people, but maybe that group, and maybe you're not privy to where they're having the conversations, but maybe that's the only thing they can talk about on their Discord. They're so freaking delighted by this event, but you'll never see that conversation. But the impact that you had was amazing with whatever event that is. But it's the only thing that you have to measure is maybe their normal login time for an event, and it doesn't tell you measurably how much more people were delighted about this event compared to another, because where conversations can happen in places where you can't measure. I'll give you like an example. Destiny. I even did this in WoW too. I would be logged in to the town, the main hub, and I would just I'd be in a party with one of my friends, and we would just jump on things to see how far and what we could jump on. We're not engaging in any of the content other than just jumping around and having fun in the environment. But I'm logged into the game for like an hour and a half doing that because I'm talking on voice chat outside of the game. But if you're to pull the data, I'm sitting in town for an hour and a half doing who knows fucking what, because I'm not AFK, you know? But I'm still like delighted to be in this world, in this universe, because that's where I want to be hanging out right now. Like, how do you measure that?
To me, I don't know where the fundamental disconnect is, as Bear Shoes is saying. I don't think that these are two different things. I don't think there's data and sentiment. I think that these are the exact same thing, just two different words. You're logged into the game. That's engagement. Being logged into the game is engagement. You didn't log out and just go to YouTube. You didn't log out and go play a different game. So your length of time being logged in is related in some way to your enjoyment, to the fulfillment you get from the game.
But how do you know what I'm engaged with in that particular
Well, so case? That's the thing. And that's why I think I lose people. I don't care. Maybe that's not important. Maybe that's a variable that I'm focused on that's a distraction. Maybe that's the bit that I'm chasing that's a waste of my time. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I don't worry about that. Maybe I just do a bunch of things that delight people. But you should
care, because if people are engaged with certain aspects of the content, then wouldn't you want to know what it is?
I would, but if we're focused on it and we're like, I just can't measure this, well then I don't. So like if we just take raw sentiment, if you tell me players like this, cool, and I do another event and I come to you, well, how'd it do? Players like this. Okay, cool. And I come to you later on and we do a third event and I go, how did players? They really like this. Okay, stop. I've got a like, and a really like. That's a measure. That's statistics to me. That's still data. It's sentiment. You're telling me they like. It's on this side. And Bear Shoes would do that. He would have the thermometer type thing, like where's the player community, you know. So he was still taking sentiment and converting that into something that I could compare across. So to me, it's hard when I want to know, like, did Murder Mystery perform better than the Dragon Lore thing? Well, players liked it. Some players didn't like it. Okay, like what? Okay, well, the RPers really, really liked this one. But the reward-oriented people really, really like this one. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's pull those things apart. Let's break them down and see what the different pieces of those were, and then move on and take that and try to construct the next event using that information. I still think that there are things here. So I've always still feel like I'm saying something that's turning people off. That's like, oh, he's just a data person. He just wants stats. No, like, compare. Give me qualitative comparison. Tell me.
Yeah, that's fine. That is 100%, I think, what you should be like talking about too.
So
it's
if
not relying solely on one, it's like numbers without any context are just numbers, right?
Yeah. So for Free Code Friday, somebody comes to me and says, I need codes. What I want to know is, I gave you codes last week. How did those perform? How did the codes this week perform? Well, players like them. Well, compare them. Which was more successful? Do I need to keep giving you the same codes? Do I need to change the codes I give you? Do I need to work harder on better codes? Like, give me something that I can shift, because that's my job. I'm not just I'm not a code monkey. I'm not just popping them out. Like, we should be pushing and making these things better. If we can only look at sentiment, at least find a way to compare them. At least find a way to where we can go forward and do a better job than what we did before. So how do I ask that question? How do I if the way I'm doing it now, everything can be measured. If that's where it's losing me, I still need to find a solution. I still need to be able to work with somebody like Bear Shoes. When he's showing me his sentiment report, I need to be able to have a positive conversation with him where he and I can work together to establish better methods, better outcomes, and we can evaluate what we're working on. Right now, I'm causing division. Right now, I'm frustrating people in his position because I'm asking things the way that I talk, and it seems to be a problem. I need to get to a point.
Coming from a point of trying to just simple understanding without breaking down what someone is doing or saying what they're doing is wrong. So I think coming at it first from going, hey, like, what is this initiative? Tell me about how it came about. And then from there, you can start asking questions about, like, what are the goals of this initiative? Because every initiative should have a goal, even if it is delight, even if it's happiness, even if it seems like something that's really hard to measure, but there still should be that goal. Everything should be done with purpose. So I think approaching it from that way first before digging into the layers. Like, if Kitty Cup came to you and was like, hey, like, I need some codes from Free Code Friday, like, I would approach that from like, oh, like, Austin, tell me more about, like, this Free Code Friday. How long has it been going on for? Give me some history about it. And then ask more questions about it. Like, what's the goal of Free Code Friday? How do you feel like you're achieving those goals? Are we hitting them? Is there something we could be doing differently? Like, and then ask those questions, like, later on, if there are pieces there that seem like they could be measured, or like being in it together, right? Versus tearing it down before understanding, I guess. It's like making sure you understand the person, their goal and their initiative first before just going, like, all in,
I will always go all in and go ham from the very beginning. I am over. Hey, Burgita Hearted, man, your name, Bear Shoes. I go all in every time. Have you ever seen me come like hey, let's have a conversation? Doesn't work. So I'll work on that. Thanks for the feedback. But the last thing I want to get from you, postmortems. I didn't see many of these at NMAS. I don't know if I was just never in the right room at the right time, but it didn't seem like something we were that great of. When I moved into product management, I still didn't see them happen that often. But when I did work on Mistover with the IMO team, there was an occasion where I sat with you and we did a postmortem, and I found that fascinating. So I don't want to go into that one specifically because I don't think it'll answer any of my questions. But how do you do a postmortem? My fear, and I think I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I also think that I'm wrong. My fear is that a postmortem is just holding somebody accountable so you can blame, so you can point the finger. Hey, this didn't work out, right? But that's when I talk to people, it seems like that is not the first thing that they say, but as you talk to them, it seems to always be a little part of it. Anytime you're doing a postmortem, there's somebody there that is the person held accountable, and at some point you're going to establish through the process of a postmortem where they screwed up. And it seems to be a fear. At InMass, I was never afraid. I mean, Commander would sit there and tell you just, fail, try it, go. And I never had a worry. But no matter what, anytime we actually formalized a postmortem, it seemed like there was going to be somebody in the room that was a little concerned if they had screwed up and they were accountable. And it worried me. Like, are we approaching this? Our postmortem is a thing where it's always going to have that, and people aren't going to share openly. They aren't going to admit to things. Like, so I guess my question, I'm not delivering a good question here. Is a postmortem, no matter what, by design, going to have some level of accountability, and somebody's going to wind up to blame? And are you trying to reveal that? Or are they moments where you come together to actually just push forward and say, how do we do things better? Like, how is a postmortem design? What are the goals? Yada, yada, yada.
Right what you said there. So this is why I know semantics, but sometimes semantics are important. This is why I like to call the postmortems retrospectives, because to me, it was really more of like what you're doing right now is reflecting on the work that we did in the past to learn from what did we do really well that we want to repeat? What didn't we do so well that we want to fix in the future? Is there anything we can do now to fix, what happened, so that we can learn from that and hopefully not repeat, the same mistake? But it's never to find the one person to pin all this blame. That was never the case. Like when I did the retrospectives, it was mainly to do with either... Yeah, it was like more big moments, like with Breach and like with it was really post-launch, retrospectives, because there's so much that goes into pre-production, and everything that leads up to that moment and then launch, that it's great to just have learning. So that's what I would do. I would approach them with first building trust so that there is that level of honesty and trust between who I'm talking with, and knowing that the goal isn't for me to surface that this person is a problem. It's really to surface what I'm after is the problem, not the person, but like, what are some of the roadblocks that we had, or what are some things that we just did super awesome? How do we keep doing that? And how do we surface that to the top so that people can have takeaways from it? So that's what I did. So how I approached it was, one, I researched good questions to ask in a retrospective, because that's how I always do things, is I research first, because people have done this. And then come together in a room to lay out the timeline for something. And that we're all putting our thoughts and feelings out together in a collaborative manner. So right away, we're getting everything out in the open together, not pointing fingers. And I think NMAS was really great about that. We never, in my opinion, had a culture of pointing fingers at people or not taking responsibility or being afraid to share something. And that's because we didn't do what you said, which would be a terrible thing, is do things based on fear, that we were making people afraid. So we do that, and then I would surface what the core themes were, or anything that I felt like should be dug into more, and then did individual interviews with people. Because everyone has a different perspective. We all can experience the same thing, but our perspective about that one thing is going to be different. So hearing what everyone's perspective is, and figure out what around these core themes, and then surface them at the end. And if we all agree on these are the core themes, the positives, and the things that we need to work on, and then, okay, let's turn them into action items so that we're actioning on this report in this moment. It's not any finger pointing. It's okay, like let's get that set up, and yep, I'll contact that person. And it was really just like a coming together. We feel like, I'm going to use your word, leveled up together, and that
Not
we're
my
in it
word.
together.
It was either a Cochise word or a commander word.
Cochise used it a lot for sure.
He did. He did.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the approach. And those were made available on the Confluence.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you could still access them and read it, the summary. When I did the individual interview, I was like the third party. So like because I wasn't on the product management team or the QA team, like I get to be this kind of trusted third party where I wasn't, I wasn't someone that you necessarily interacted through the process. To me, when I like doing the interviews, I like trying to get to the root of problems. So I had fun in that role. But I would never share like the individual notes that I took of individual conversations. And I always try to make people feel comfortable about like if there's anything like that you're going to talk about, but that you don't want your name attached to, or you don't want this brought back to the group, like I would want to respect that, because at the end of the day, I don't want people to be afraid to be transparent and to share something.
So something you said earlier in the conversation, you said earlier today when we were talking, and this is the hidden third thing that I want to give you an opportunity to correct me on. I hate success. I hate it with a passion. I hate when I'm talking to my peers and they bring up success, and I feel like we're cheerleading, because success, I have a hard time allowing it to inform anything I'm doing. So this is the behavior I hope that after my non-concise story you can correct. I
feel like I'm your therapist right now.
Of course,
like,
that's what this is.
We need to work on some self-love.
That's what this is.
I want you to talk about 2 proud moments you had at NMAS that you felt really happy about, and that you're going to be not afraid to express that you were proud of being part of that moment.
I mean, that's what this is. That's what that's the whole reason I'm doing these things. We all lost our jobs during work from home. We turned towards our family and loved ones to go through this, instead of, having that last few hours to clean out your desk with your coworkers, which is normally how a layoff happens, right?
Closing time.
Exactly. So there were a lot of things I was working on. I'm not at the end of my career. I haven't learned everything. I'm still screwing things up. I still go home at the end of the day.
You haven't learned everything?
I haven't learned everything. I go home at the end of the day and I'm laying in bed. I'm thinking, God damn it, I really fucked up that conversation. I need to fix that. I need to stop doing that. And this time, as this thing slows down, I'm spending a lot of time reflecting and going, wow, I hate the way I'm handling these things. And there's so much I can go into about this, but it would detract from what I'm trying to get to, I think. So I'm not going to. Maybe a later stream, maybe a later interview. What I'm just trying to get at is there's just so much that if I had 10 more years at NMAS, then I would have had time to resolve. I would have worked towards these things, but it's gone. So now the opportunity, I'm just going to throw the goddamn problem at you and see what you do with it. That's what I'm trying to do. So yeah, this is like, for me, it's a little bit of a therapy session, not for feelings, but as for unresolved, level ups, achievements I didn't hit, right? Levels that I'm not going to get. So yeah, a lot of what I'm doing here, a lot of this chat is me being selfish to get that. So with success, I can repeat success, but eventually that success will fail. And if I'm not paying attention, I don't know why it failed, because it seems like people don't pursue success. Like, you have a postmortem during failure, but I've never seen us go, wow, we really nailed that. Let's sit down and do a critical postmortem. No, we just move on to the next thing. And that's the way it's always seemed to me. So we just try to keep repeating success. And I don't feel I'm growing. I'm just repeating. So anytime I fail, anytime something goes sideways, it's amazing. And this has been core to me my whole life, and a part of, I think, where I come from a negative point. I'm a very negative person when people first meet me and how I talk to them. But it's what I'm attracted to, not being negative. But I got into tech, electronics, with car stereos. I bought a Nissan Titan, 2004 Nissan Titan, drove it for 3 days, pulled it into my family's big garage, and I stripped out the chairs, pulled the floor mats up, installed a bunch of Dynamat, and ran a $2,000 Alpine stereo system. And I didn't drive the truck for 2 weeks. I bought a new truck, drove it for 3 days, and then didn't drive for 2 weeks because I had it tore apart. But that was super fun. And anytime something broke, anytime a wire shorted or a speaker went out or I had any kind of problem, I was extremely excited. It was awesome. Now, I love that car stereo. The sound was amazing. I was very happy to share that with people, but I was more excited when it was broke because it gave me something to fix. I've always been attracted to failure. Failure gives me something to fix, gives me something to improve. And as a product manager, if you came to me and you said, hey, this was successful, this failed, I will immediately want to know why that one failed. I'm going to turn most of my attention towards that failure because that's something I can change. That's something I can pivot from. That success, why was it successful? I don't know. How successful could it have been? If we improved 20%, if we did 120 of what we did last month, could I have done 170? Like, was that 120 actually a failure? Yeah, it was a little bit better than last month, but should it have been better? That seems... I don't know how to answer that question, but I can look at a failure and I can quickly solve that and I can turn that one around. So you're talking about postmortems, you're talking about looking at things, and you're always on the side of positive. You want to discuss the success. You want to talk about those things. Something happened to me. I've been traumatized at some point in my life that I'm just feeding off the failure. What am I missing with success? Why am I not seeing the value there? What value am I missing? How do you correct this silliness in me to love failure so much?
To me, from the way you just talked about that, it's easier for you to see.
You're saying I'm lazy.
How,
God damn, I went right to that.
How you could fix failure than how you could either repeat success or build off of success. Like, would you...
Yeah. Not only that, but I don't see people around me trying to. I don't see people around me trying to build off success. I see people around me celebrate success and question failure. And that's kind of what I've internalized. So now it seems like a distraction to celebrate success. But the way you're saying it, to build from success, that's something that I'm not exposed to.
Yeah. So, like, let's say you had a new character release in Closers, and all the promotion work that you did leading up to it and leading up to the launch of this character did better than any other character before. Like, what would you do with that? Would you celebrate that success? Would you try to... What would be your process of with what you know now? Like, how would you look at that success, and what would you do with that? If there wasn't anything to be fixed that was broken, but this is what was on your plate. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, there would be some very quick and easy things I would go to. Some are immediate, some are more long term that I would just check back into. But how many of the characters were created, played, and how many of those turned into long term mains? Like you can look at how long a person plays a character, right? Like you've got your Amon Archer, or you got your Sylvie, and you look and say, well, how long do they play that character versus their other characters? So we release a new character or new race gender combination, and you're going to see that spike, right? Immediately people are going to log in and they're just going to hop around on Stepstone Island with Terra. So they're going to take the Ellen Valkyrie and they're going to do the role. They're going to look at the movement and they're going to think, does that feel right to me? Like the difference between static female to Ellen, does this feel right? Do I want this? But that may be all they were trying to do. They just want to see that feel, and they're going to abandon that character right away. So you're going to see all these new characters created, but that may be misinformation. So then you say, how far did they make? Did they make it through Stepstone? Did they make it all the way to Bastion of Locke, which is that level 20 failure? Making it to Velica is that level 11 failure. Making it to Bastion of Locke and completing that is the next point of failure because you don't know what to do after that. The linear kind of changes.
I'm going to stop you here for a second.
Oh, no.
What I'm hearing, your thought process right now is immediately looking for the failure. When I just asked about a success.
True.
So to me, what it sounds like is that you're not sure what questions to ask when you have a success scenario to build and to understand what it is that you could be doing when you do have a success scenario. So to me, you're already looking at the polar opposite of the negative and looking for that failure.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So I think like with that closer's example, be like talking to the players about, hey, what do you love about this character? Is the character backstory, the character design, is that something you freaking love? Like why was it something in the promotion that you did that you want to repeat for the next time? I think trying to understand what components maybe led to the success, if you can understand what that is, so that you could repeat that for the future. And then, you had this opportunity of like, we have the most popular character ever. Maybe there's an opportunity for an event. Maybe there's, these other things that you can continue on that delight train that the players are experiencing right now to elongate the concurrencies for these characters. There's things that you can do to maybe try to prolong the success, but not jumping immediately to where are the point of failures right now. I think to what Counterpoint is saying, it's the QA of like, you're looking for that bug, you're looking where the break is, because you know what to do when there's a break. And that means there's something for you to fix. But the other side of it, like building off of success, that's where you got to think a bit more strategically and dig into the questions about like, okay, like why is this successful? Is it something that we did? Is it the design? Is it, what are all the possibilities that led to this success?
So if we're looking at closers, if we release a new character, like the release of Bai and Seth were different, big differences. Bai was extremely successful, Seth wasn't as successful. They're both anime characters. They're both female. So if I look at that and people tell me, oh, I liked Bai's backstory. Oh, I didn't like Seth's backstory. And I want to say, okay, I want to repeat the success of Bai. I want to grow that success. I want to improve upon that success. The best thing I can think of is to go to Nautic and say, people like Bai. But that I can't action from I like Bai. Let's do Bai number 2. What I would want to do is go, people liked Bai, but they didn't like Seth. What was the difference? So I'm still going to pull in that failure to have that comparison. Was there some story differences? Maybe Bai's was more complete. Maybe Bai's was more positive. Maybe Bai included more characters that made a more well-rounded story. Maybe there was more tragedy in Bai's. I'm looking for what that difference is, but I can't understand Bai's success without saying Seth was not successful. So I need that failure as that reference point, where if I'm just looking at something as a success, I don't know how more successful it could be. And I would still look at something and say, what's the most successful character release in Closer's history? What's the second most successful character release in Closer's history? These are two great examples of success, but I still want to know the difference between the two because one of them failed to a certain degree. I don't know how to say, well, one succeeded more. What was the success? I will look to the one that failed and say what was missing, what was lacking, what was different.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. So reference points are great when they're available and when you can use them. I don't think that's a bad thing to do. But you're not always going to have a reference point. Like launching Dark Crystal, for instance. That's new. Like, there's not another exact Dark Crystal to evaluate against for what the best plan for launching this title is. So that's where you have to look at start thinking about, okay, what do I know about this? Okay, I know it's a boxed product. I know it's, fantasy. What other boxed fantasy products can I look at that was successful? What did they do? What can I pull from that? Not, but again, like as I'm talking about that reference for still looking at something that is new, I'm not looking to the negative. Like it's yeah, this is just, I think this is it's a hard exercise to do, to not be able to have that reference point, because it it can be more challenging, because you don't have something to reference. You don't have something that you can immediately say, I can fix this. It's all on you, or the people that you talk to. But the only advice I could give there is asking questions. Like asking questions about, okay, why do I think this was successful? And what questions would you ask around that for whatever scenario that you're in? But not thinking about referencing it to anything negative. Just like, why do I think it's successful? And then whittling down what the most probable cause of that success is. And you might be right and you might be wrong, And that's part of it. It's part of experimenting with, seeing if you can recreate this success or building upon it. Oh, I think it was successful because, like you said, I had a really compelling backstory. And you learn about that backstory, and then you start to understand like why Closers fans latched onto that so much. You can at least go to Nautic and say, hey, like our players actually really care about our characters' backstories. Like they really care. So I think spending some more like time in this space would be beneficial to the game. Not saying this last character was bad because of this. It's like looking as to like, why was this successful? Where can we lean into? Yeah, good targetable questions to get a form of why.
The work from home transition, moving from everybody being in the office, these awesome standing desks, Sam Kim throwing foam shit around late at night over people's desks and breaking stuff, and the endless supply of salted peanuts and the amazing soda machine that we had. Oh God, I miss that soda water so much. I have an addiction to soda water that was given to me by
it worked
MS.
like half the time.
It did.
Was always a letdown.
True.
I was there for that dried mango, but yeah, go on.
I hated the mango. Oh God.
Dude,
and the blackberry did
all
like
about the dried mango, yeah.
How was the work from home transition for you? Do you can you speak to how it was for you with NMAS and what you think is going to happen with the industry? Like what is work from home going to do to us? Being in Seattle, it's like the only thing I'm hearing other than shit's on fire. Shit's on fire and we're all work from home. That's pretty much the thing I hear here.
At first, like, it was kind of like, yes, I don't have an hour commute in and an hour commute home, and it was starting to get real bad to where it was like an hour, 15 minutes.
Yeah, everything keeps shutting down. Like, oh, this bridge is going to collapse. Let's not use it. Like,
yeah,
I use that.
Yeah. So, like, thinking that I'm spending 2.5 hours in the car every day in traffic is like definitely sad. But I feel like we did a really good job of being able to transition technology and connectivity to employees. Like we still had we did a Monday or Wednesday morning coffee where it's not a formal meeting, but it's kind of like trying to simulate the break room, as if you were coming in and making your cup of coffee before you start your day. Like I really liked that aspect of it, having something informal as well as like Friday happy hours to still have that chance of connecting with people that you're not seeing walk by in the hallway. But I'd say like a challenge for me in my role being a floaty person, bouncing between teams, like listening for opportunities to help out. It was really challenging for me to have those conversations taken away. Like no one's going to fire up a conversation and then be like, oh, because Anna sat next to you, I'm just going to invite her in case she overhears something in this conversation, Like sometimes you don't know who can help you, you just don't know. But someone who's in the vicinity might be like, oh, wait, I have some experience with that if you ever want to chat about it, It can be hard to ask for help, but So that's something that I really missed in my role, was overhearing those conversations that would happen at Stefan's desk, and hearing the types of like problems or challenges that were coming up, and trying to think about like ways maybe I could help out, or if there were data points that could be captured that maybe people don't know about, or opportunities in general to add value. So I felt like that was really challenging. Still managed to do my job, but that was something that I really missed. Working from home, you just miss those opportunities from simply not working with each other in the office. But yeah, a lot of companies are doing remote all the way through the end of the year, some even already into the next year. And I think I saw something about Microsoft simulating the commute. I didn't click on it, but something in Teams, because that's something that I did enjoy from my commute, is the mental decompression that I would do in the car, where I'd think about everything that happened. And I had an hour to do that, but if I'm at home, I walk out that door and I'm home. You know, it's like there's no decompression, and I really enjoyed that time.
So would you say that simulating a commute would be an instance of an engagement mechanic that people don't enjoy, but does at some level bring a quality of life to the whole?
I think they're maybe making it more enjoyable.
Oh, God damn it. They're improving the commute.
They're improving it. They're improving
it's not what I want people to do with their time. Don't take the things I detest.
The building on success of teams and figuring out ways to connect people even more and provide value.
That's how they get you.
They're going to build on that. Yeah.
So on the topic of opportunity, what's next? And I also think this ties into the question that I've been ending these on. How do you get into the industry? So what's next for Circuits?
I am moving to Canada, as Saru said there. I got a job in Canada as a data analyst at a video game company. My first day is November 2nd. And so I move in 2 weeks, which is crazy, but I'm really, really excited because I get to do... One, I get to see if I can replicate the success I had at NMAS there. And I get the challenge of what it's like to work at a developer studio. And I'm really excited about the opportunities there, the unknown, and figuring it out.
So you had a unique story on how you got the job. Would you say it would be, if I was to ask you how does someone get into the industry, would this be something you would tell people, hey, look, to do this? Or do you think you had a one-off?
Both, you know. It's utilizing what you got. So when I lost my job, sniff, I saw a lot of people, because NMAS is really, like, NMAS takes care of their employees. They're amazing. And, you know, one of the first things they said is, you know, we're going to send out, like, with your consent, your resume to a bunch of recruiters and, you know, things like that. They really only want the best for their employees, and they've done a really great job of taking care of their employees. So I noticed like higher traffic to my LinkedIn. I activated that free 30-day LinkedIn Pro membership so you could see who looks at your profile. And about like a week after I was let go, I saw someone with a similar job as Co-Cheese's, and I worked pretty closely with him for the past year and a half. And so I just reached out and was like, hey, I saw you looked at my LinkedIn profile. You have a similar job to someone I worked with closely. I know the studio that you're at. I would love to just have a conversation about like what that role is like at that studio. Just to have a conversation. And they agreed, and they ended up setting up a conversation with the lead data analyst there too. And that conversation went really well. And then they said, do you want to do a 3-hour interview in a week? I was like, yes. But also I was just expecting a conversation, not for it to like go anywhere. Right. And that interview went really well. It felt very like comfortable. I felt like I clicked with like everyone I spoke with, and I was really excited about how they spoke about the culture and everything like that. And then I got the job offer, and I was like, fuck, I just started out as a conversation, and now we're moving to Canada. So, yeah, it was unexpected. But if you just like, for me, I just was looking to start having conversations with people, because this industry is so connection based. Of course, it's easier to get in when you know someone, but there's so many studios and so many great studios of all sizes that might be a really great fit for you, but you just don't know it. And even if you have a job, it might be great to reach out and just see if you can get the conversation, because if someone has a great conversation with you and remembers you, but there's like no role for you at that time, when a role does come up, they're probably going to remember you and go, wait, I think I have a really great candidate for this role. You never know. Relationships, Commander, relationships. Yeah. So, yeah, that was lucky. And, but I did that to, I reached out to a couple of people who looked at my profile, but only one answered. So, you know, it's putting in the effort, but building the relationships can usually only lead to good things.
All right. I'm going to get you out of here after 3 minutes shy of 3 hours.
Cool.
Thanks
for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah.
This is good. I liked your challenging questions. For me, like, I'm someone who I'm not great at quick fire. I time to reflect. That's not always possible, but I'll probably think of, I don't know, my brain will work on this all night as I'm falling asleep. I'll think about this for 2 hours, won't be able to sleep. And then the next day I'll be like, oh, I got some great things. But yeah, I appreciate you inviting me here. It was great to have these conversations. I wish we could have had a conversation like this as we were working, but no shooting on ourselves. We're having it now. And hopefully it was helpful, and don't hesitate to reach out. Always make time.
I think you said you got like a week before you head out. You know my stream schedule. If you want to hop in, we'll do this again. Yeah. I don't mind.
Happy to do it.
All right. Chat, thank you very much. This has been Anna Circuits, Coffee and Circuits on Twitch, also the YouTube. And if you want, throw your stuff. The links are available for you if you want to start spamming some stuff.
Oh, dang.
Oh, dang. So, I didn't prep you on that. Sorry. I should have told you ahead of time.
If you want an uncommitted schedule for Twitch, follow me there. I also post a lot on Instagram. Cats, memes, you name it. I'm also on Twitter. But with the Twitter text limitation, I had to go with the underscore. So that's where you can find me. Those are the best places for that quality content.
Quality content.